Yo, what up, guys? We are live. So you guys have been asking me, can you please get Kevin on more and get rid of all the other people? So I decided to kick Kyla off the stream. It's going to be just me and Kevin. I'm just kidding. Kyla's going to be here in a few minutes. So we got a pretty fun podcast planned for you guys today. There's a few people who want to debate Kyla, i.e. not so erudite. So one is already backstage, and there's one guy who wants to debate me. I think he's from TikTok, so that should be interesting. And then we'll do some Q&A. We'll open up the panel, have guys come on. And it doesn't have to be just debates either. You can ask us questions, shoot the shit, anything that you guys need help with. But yeah, man, what's been going on with you?
Yeah, just traveling again. Things will be pretty normal starting after the weekend again, and I'm going to be streaming pretty regularly. So good times. It's good to sort of take a break off of YouTube, whatever, for a while. I still been doing a lot of different work in the background, but yeah.
Sorry, when you say you're traveling, do you mean like you're going from your parents' basement to the living room, and what's the traveling? Because apparently you live in your parents' basement, so it's like, where are you traveling to?
Yeah, going from my mom's house to my dad's house to my grandparents' house to another grandparent's house, then crashing on a friend's couch.
Okay.
I'm using the couch surfing app. Do you know the couch surfing app? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. I used to do that a decade ago. Yeah. You know what's funny? You can actually hook up with girls from couch surfing. I've never done it, but my roommate, India P, he's hooked up with like half a dozen girls from couch surfing.
Wow. I'd be very careful with that, because, I don't know. I've actually never used couch surfing, so I have no idea, but it seems kind of creepy to me.
It's a little bit, I don't think it's creepy. It's just a little bit too much of a time investment for me. But, having to organize the girl staying and whatnot. But yeah, we actually have that on our website, by the way. If you guys go to playingfire.com, love reports, we have like a whole thing on that. After we released that, right after that came out, my business partner got banned from couch surfing. So I guess couch surfing is familiar with Playing with Fire.
Yeah, they're big fans.
Yeah, apparently. All right, so I'll just do some questions before Kyla gets here. Let me just see what her ETA is. I think she'll be here any minute. Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about obviously the John situation. Even if I want to, I just can't escape from it. No, I mean, it's pretty funny.
I thought you made your last video addressing the topic, bro.
Yeah, well, I'm done with it. I'm not like talking about it all anymore. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I watched like 5 minutes of his video because he's just obsessed. All he's gonna do is make videos about me.
It's pretty make another one?
No, I'm not making. Oh yeah, he just made one today. I'm not responding. I got better shit to do. Oh, there we go. What's up, Kyla?
Hello, how's it going?
Good. You have like a different look every time I see you.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of look like a young professional today rather than like a goth mama.
Based.
I had you look like you're about to celebrate Christmas.
Yeah,
I was on a podcast. This is pink. My camera is like super saturating the reds in my room. Probably actually because there's purple lighting everywhere, actually. But this is pink, but it looks red.
Oh. But yeah, anyway, so we already got one guy backstage. This is the guy with let me add him right now, Angry. This is the guy who had the height increasing surgery. And he messaged me after the last podcast, and he was like, "Hey, man, I want to debate Kyla." And he actually sent me proof that he's real. He sent me photos. So this guy is 100% real. He actually had the surgery. He sent me like various photos to prove it. So
I believed him by the end. Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, no, this guy's like 100%. Just in case anyone's like, not sure. Yo, what up, Angry?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
You're super quiet. Is there any way, Angry, you could turn up your mic a little bit?
Yeah, I'll try to do that. I'm also under the weather, so I apologize if my voice is coming through.
Listen, bro, I got you beat. I spent 3 hours at the dentist's office today. They did 7 cavities, all right?
Rough.
Well, I stretch my bones 4 times a day, so no, I'm kidding.
There we go.
Maybe not. So anyway, I don't know. I just thought that little appearance last time just kind of ended on a sour note. And, I'm generally a fan of what you're trying to do, Kyla. You're trying to tackle a lot of these issues that are, endemic, I guess, to men. It seems like that's your goal. So I'm like a fan of that, but I just think you were a little condescending, and yeah, I wanted to maybe address some of the criticisms that you made, and because I think you made a lot of mischaracterizations, false assumptions, and yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Sure. Okay. Where do you want to start?
Okay, so you kind of portrayed me as a victim, right? So you said that, it was a tragedy that I succumbed to the black pill dogma, that I got the surgery. And I just think that I was misunderstood, because I never claimed that, I needed to be 6'1" to, get laid. I obviously don't think that's the case, because you can obviously go outside and you can see dozens of couples where, the men are in the average to below average height range. So it's more about that. My motivation for doing this was about trying to become exceptional, trying to kind of transcend my natural potential. And the reason for that is sort of because, again, I mentioned this last time, but not only is it neurodivergence, but I also just, I don't know, there was something left to be desired in my childhood. And I'm not going to lie, like I am trying to compensate for that. And I'm trying to, I feel like by sleeping with a lot of women, I can kind of feel their warmth from afar, and also study them in a way. Like, I know PUAs, they have this interesting terminology. They go to the club and they call it a field report. And I always found that super fascinating, because, from a very reductionist point of view, it would be interesting to apply my worldview to a lot of these interactions vis-a-vis the opposite sex. And I guess you could also tell me like what you oppose specifically in the manosphere. And yeah.
Sure. I'm so sorry to do this again. Chat's just wondering if there's any way I can't control your audio at all on my end. Is there any way
I might actually be able to do it on my end. Let me try.
Okay, perfect. So I wrote down what you said though, Angry. I'm not just dithering away.
No, actually, sorry. It doesn't give me the option, Angry, to adjust you. It's weird because I can adjust everyone else. You're actually muted right now, Angry. I don't know why it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Edit mic settings. There we go. I see it. Okay. Automatically adjust volume. All right. So I can bump you up to 150. All right. Hopefully this solves the issue. All right. Say something.
Hello?
No, that didn't seem like it
No,
helped.
it's way quieter.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just return it back to whatever the baseline setting was. Every time you mute yourself, I cannot adjust you, Angry. So yeah, there we go. Thanks. So I'm muting. Automatically adjust mic volume. Okay. Yeah. If you can just speak closer into the microphone, Angry, that would be cool.
Okay. Hello?
You just made yourself a lot quieter, so it was better.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna try to unplug my earphones here, see if that works.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one benefit of Discord is every single listener can adjust everyone else's volume for themselves, which just reduces the work you have to do.
Oh, okay.
Because StreamYard as a participant, I can't.
Is this better? Sorry, hello?
Yes.
Oh, that's so much better.
Nice.
Way better.
All right, I'm glad we solved it.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So to dig into it, so you kind of had a couple of statements there. So there's a question for me about what I actually believe about the manosphere, and then you kind of re-outlined it basically and like, look, I'm not a victim. I'm just trying to like super excel, essentially. Like I want to like
and
be
that wasn't a
standoutish.
prepared opening statement. It was just off the cuff. So I apologize if it was disorganized.
No, you're good. I'm just wanting to recap everything you said so we're on the same page. Yeah. Okay. So and basically for you, it feels like you basically alluded like there is an element of like disconnect that seems like you have. You mentioned something from your childhood, but also that essentially sleeping with women gives you I think I wrote down, it gives you a capacity to feel their warmth from afar. And you're also interested in kind of this element of case study. So it feels like for you, what you're kind of describing is like this farness that you feel from women. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, and from society in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like the best you can kind of do is like study them from afar and like essentially like try to catch some of the heat from like the distant forest.
Basically.
Okay.
That's what I'm going for. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess I want to make it clear. I don't see you as just a victim because I think you're an adult and you make your own choices.
Yeah, you would be right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you labeled this as a tragedy, right? And you said that I was brainwashed. And again, a lot of people are actually vehemently against this surgery, even within the black pill community.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of infighting as well. Like some black pillars, for example, are against looks maxing because it doesn't. It's a band-aid solution, for example, right? Some black pillars believe that the real solutions are not real. Sorry, the real problems are actually, feminism, and which is partially true in my opinion, and demographic decline and whatnot. I mean, we could also discuss the pragmatic benefits of limb lengthening and why I thought your criticisms are double standard. Could get into that.
I'd be super curious about that. Let's maybe focus on why it's a tragedy, because I would hold to that pretty firmly. That it's
why do you think it's a tragedy that I'm trying to improve myself to this extent?
So basically, I think what you did is the most logical conclusion of the black pill ideology. Black pill as it's broadly known. I realize there's nuances within the black pill. There's going to be different black pillars with different views, but the most commonly conceptualized version of black pill is essentially looks matter most, right? If you improve on looks, you're more likely to get laid and find women.
I still think the most important pillar is hypergamy. And I
Sure, but how do you get to the top of the hypergamous chain in a black pill world?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so what you did, to me, if you buy into everything the black pill says as being true, I actually don't know how black pills have a good leg to stand on of saying that this surgery doesn't make sense, other than basically like the medical risks. But it's like, if you're a shorter guy, medical costs, exactly, and being on crutches for 6 months, and some of the risks that are associated with having your legs lengthened, like the weakening of the bones, blah 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 blah. But the issue is, for example, if you're like a 5'7" guy and you've fully bought into the black pill worldview, I don't know how you tell a 5'7" guy not to get it, because if you're 5'7", if you're 5'6", you're already getting like a -2 points on looks. Like, what you did to me is a natural conclusion of the black pill ideology.
I don't think it's -2 points. That might be if you judge looks on a Gaussian distribution, symmetric. I think it's, I don't know. I don't have a background in statistics, but I skew to the left. I guess the mean is to the right of the median, which means that the average man is closer to a 4. That's kind of the way I see it. So I don't know if you're, for example, if you're a standard deviation below average in the West, which would be about 5'7", maybe that's -1 point, right? So your husband, you constantly cite him as an example of someone who flourished or had good dating outcomes in spite of his height, right?
Yeah.
And, I think there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? I was just listening to your stream before I entered this panel, and you were saying that, Tinder is antisocial, and I completely agree. And that's why I actually want to succeed on Tinder, because again, I view everything in reductionist terms, and I kind of want to play Tinder like a video game, right? And that's what fascinates me about the manosphere. Basically, like building an archetype, building a character, manufacturing an identity. And just playing to my strengths, and going out and trying to meet women at co-ed activities is probably not conducive to what I'm the best at, if that makes sense.
Sorry, what are you best at?
I think, separating my emotions from reality, and not thinking logically, but just being able to perceive human behavior and stuff. Like, for example, right, Alex talks about on Tinder, right? He recommends having a picture with a dog. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to display good partner attributes, right? And even though you're displaying that you're a good long-term catch, you're still more likely going to be able to confer, one-night stands by doing that. So I find that kind of fascinating, that you can convince women to sleep with you quicker by demonstrating that you're good at long-term mating as well. So I'll stop there and let you respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think most women, when they're having sex casually, a lot of women, I think, see casual sex as the way to get a guy to like settle down with them. I think like there are
Yes,
definitely some women who just genuinely only want casual sex, but I think it's actually more rare. I think a lot of women are hoping that a casual friends with benefits relationship turns into a longer term relationship.
exactly. Yeah. And that's why, these situationships are kind of the paradigm for Zoomers.
Mhm, mhm. Um, Basically, I would still hold to the position that like your situation is a tragedy because essentially what I would say is the black pill is wrong, right?
Okay.
It is wrong about reality. And in my view, if somebody peddles a worldview that is fully incorrect about reality, they're
Hmm.
doing one of two things. They're really stupid, right? That's one option. They just are like too stupid to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Or they're lying to you. Now, they might not be intentionally lying to you because we can, for lots of reasons, lie to ourselves and then lie to other people. But it's a lie nevertheless because it's not grounded in reality. So, a claim, for example, that says women value men and select partners dominantly on looks is a lie because women don't select for that except for exclusively on dating apps, which I've already says is antisocial. And a lot of women tend not to enjoy dating apps after being on it for a year or two because of kind of the antisocial nature. Dating apps are not well designed for finding long-term partners because it necessarily forces women to only select on looks. Whereas as soon as you go into co-ed spaces, as soon as you just go into like college and university or any other space where men and women interact and inevitably end up fucking and marrying,
Mhm.
women don't seem to select for looks. Looks are a prerequisite. So you need to be a certain standard. But
Hmm.
beyond that, they select for a million other things.
Yeah. So according to what I've read, actually, people pair up people with similar levels of attractiveness tend to pair up, but hypergamy specifically applies to education level and earning potential. However, when you say that women are left unsatisfied with online dating, is that because they're getting ghosted? Is like, would the format work for them if these men were committing to them who were super good looking? I think that might be the crux of the disagreement. I think the black pill does a good job of expanding on a lot of these traits that are necessary for acquiring a woman at the initial stage of a relationship, or like initial relationship formation, right? The red pill, again, it's kind of an expansion in the red pill in that there's a lot of emphasis on immutability, again, determinism, which is right a rejection of tabula rasa, right? Steven Pinker's book. Not sure if you've heard of it or if you know who Steven Pinker is. And then obviously lookism, right? Because lookism is kind of an adaptation to the modern social media landscape. So even if women aren't inherently focused on looks as much as men, I think that a lot of the a lot of the most high status men also happen to be the best looking now because we're all antisocial and we're on social media, and that's kind of the only way to judge people.
I just don't think that that is the only way, right? A lot of people are turning away from dating apps, men and women alike, by the way. Like, there's a lot of men in like red pill spaces and black pill spaces, especially, that are turning away from dating apps, which is based. There's a ton of women doing the same thing. People in general are starting to realize,
In
like,
what age cohort?
in what age cohort? I would say just
Yeah.
increasingly as a culture. So probably we're going to see older people moving away from it faster because they're going to be more burnt out on it. But I think we're starting to see younger and younger people as well starting to be like, it's only really good for hookups.
Yeah, and you're right. It's like it is a rendition of Grinder, which is again a gay dating app.
Yeah.
So by rendition, I mean it's the same model, right,
Yeah.
Alex? It's like it's a swipe app.
Oh,
But yeah, so it's not really meant to foster long-term heterosexual relationships. Um, but I still think that these indicators of good genes, I think women really care about that a ton. And the only reason why maybe these issues weren't focused on in the past is because of, again, Jordan Peterson kind of refers to this as socially enforced monogamy. And you might be right about women caring less about attractiveness over the course of a relationship. But and it might be a threshold thing. Like I'm obviously not sure. I don't have all the answers. I think maybe once you're in the third quartile of attractiveness, from the 50th to 75th, or again 75th to 100th percentile, it's a lot easier to retain these women that you sleep with. I don't know.
Sort of. I guess what I would basically argue is kind of two things. Number one, because we're mostly talking about straight men with straight women.
Right.
Straight men are not exactly very good at having an aesthetic. Aesthetic is broadly a decently undervalued thing. It's kind of seen as an effeminate trait to have.
I think you're wrong about that. But go on. Yeah.
Show me a collective of straight men who really value aesthetic and wouldn't call that like baby pussy shit.
I think the proliferation of
other than like dating coaches who've realized that aesthetics matters.
I think the proliferation of TikTok has made men care more about these,
Yeah, I think it's coming back. Like Gen Z is Gen Z's much more aesthetic. But for a lot of millennials, for example, the reality is like most guys aren't. And even in Gen Z, you've got like the online people that are starting to value aesthetic. But if you go into like normie land, like the reality is like most people are still like wearing your like basic, just like, oh, it's a shirt and some pants and a jacket. And there's no cohesiveness to it. Right. And so like, while I would say that looks to some degree is a prerequisite, what you really need to be doing with your aesthetic is communicating to women that you're an adult, that you can clean up after yourself a little bit, right? You've probably wiped your butt. You've probably brushed your teeth. You've groomed your beard,
just
right?
Take a shower, bro. Yeah.
Well, no, it's more than that. If you've groomed your beard, I know you've done everything else, right? What loser is going to groom his beard but never like wash his hands? Like that's not going to be something that we typically see together, right? Except for apparently gross Alex, right? And so if any guy does a little bit of intention towards aesthetic, it communicates something to women, which is what women are really looking for. Because there is some truth in that women are typically looking for men that are going to be stable, consistent providers. A guy who can pay attention to some level of his aesthetic doesn't need to be a beautiful femboy. He doesn't need to be perfectly manicured, but he's put together and looks good, communicates some element of that trait. That's also what money communicates. That's also what a good job communicates. It communicates all these elements of I can provide you stability, which is what a lot of women are looking for.
Can I weigh in? I think, I don't know, we have to kind of expand your position, but I think that here's what I would say. I think angry overvalues the importance of looks, but I would say, Kyla, you undervalue the importance of looks. I mean, I would say that just because a lot of people are kind of slobs and don't really like take the best care of themselves doesn't mean that aesthetics aren't important. It's just like saying like money's not important. Well, why is money not important? Because a lot of people are poor, right? Well, no, those people would have money if they could wave a magic wand. They just don't. But I would say that, aesthetics are important. I think some girls value it more than others. And I think with age ranges, as you get older, looks play a little bit less. And, your financial stability and all that stuff plays a little bit more. But if we're talking about girls in their like late teens, early 20s, even late 20s, I do think they care about looks. I don't think it's the end all be all. And I don't think that it's nearly as important as Angry says it is. I think there's a whole other component that Angry might be leaving on the table, which is game, personality, character development, charisma. But we can't say that, looks are just like they barely matter. Like fact of the matter is a guy who's really good looking has a significant advantage over a guy who's not good looking, all other factors being equal.
That's why I said it's a prerequisite, right? You do need to have some level of looks. And the attractiveness of the woman is also going to somewhat determine what the prerequisite level is as well. But I would agree, especially when you look at young girls, right? They're a little bit more interested in the looks for a large part, but everyone, like most young girls I know, when they finally find their boyfriend, they'll cope about how he's not very attractive and be like, he's just not very photogenic. Will be like the classic line you always hear from girls, because it turns out that when they're looking for long-term partners, even young girls, like younger women, are fundamentally looking for a different thing. Women are definitely, you need looks as a prerequisite. Obviously, if you're a handsome guy, if you're a fucking 10 out of 10 dude, the world is your oyster. You can do anything. What I'm saying is it's not that much work for a lot of guys to get up to at least a 5. And for most women, a 5 is good enough. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, a 5 is good enough. And yes, there are some material girls who want something more than that. But
like a 5 can be enough situationally, right? Depending on the context. Right.
And the type of girl, right? So like some girls that prioritize a lot more about work ethic.
I don't agree with the type of girl. There's an expression it's called AWOLT in the manosphere. All women are like that. And basically my beliefs, or at least I think the black pill in general is actually predicated on this acronym AWOLT because, again, I kind of make a series of deductions based on the fact that as a universality, right, if you go up to a woman, even if you're above average looking, and ask her to have casual sex, she will automatically decline you, right? And that is because of, sorry, you disagree with that?
No,
Well, I
but
think
this
that has to do
has
with a lack of social tact. Yeah, like
that's a whole other thing.
I don't think it's because of social tact.
It's actually more than that. As a woman, if you approach me and ask for casual sex, sex is
Yeah.
a high risk engagement for women specifically, because that means I'm going to a private space with you and being
Yes, I
exceedingly
agree.
vulnerable.
And
that
that's
you're
why I
both-
think unconditional sexual engagement is a universal rule among women, or the lack thereof, right?
wait, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Okay, how do I sort of explain this clearly? Women will never engage in unconditional casual sex. If unconditional meaning if the man has nothing to offer. Technically, if you have the social acuity, right, you're kind of signaling that you're a normal guy. But I'm saying even if you strip that, right, and you just go up to her in a normal voice and just ask her for casual sex, her genes have been like encoded, right, for her to say no to that problem.
Well, I think there's a factor called social tact. Like, for example, we were filming Infield last night, and we were trying like really crazy. We're doing like funny openers. One of the ones we were trying is kind of like an inside joke to my channel, is going up to girls and saying, "Hey, do you want to have a bottle of wine on a romantic balcony?" And we were finding even with that was like too aggressive for most girls. With some of them, I could recover, but so when we just made a slight adjustment, we went in hate trouble, and then 30 seconds in, we were like, "Do you want to split a bottle of wine on a romantic balcony?" Our success rate like went through the roof, right? So just having, I think that literally just has to do with poor social tact, because a girl walking around, an attractive girl walking around the street, she gets offered sex by homeless people, random people on the street all the time. Like, I just remember walking around with my girlfriend on Halloween. Like, we were literally together, and there's guys like, "Yo, girl, I want to smack that ass." Like, like it's just like insane. Like that.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about
girls. Yeah. So it's like when you approach a girl and you're like, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" You just automatically put yourself in that kind of creepy guy category.
I think it's just because women are meant to reject men in a vacuum, right? And that's what I mean by unconditional.
Don't
So
you
anyway,
think it would be more about safety though? Like, it's not about women are meant to reject men. It's that like it is in a
vacuum,
woman's
if they have
yeah,
nothing
in
to
a
offer.
vacuum, even
Yes.
in a vacuum, it's in a woman's best interest to vet her sexual partner, because of necessarily men's bodies are 50% bigger on average than women's bodies. There is always a power differential unless I'm having sex with a man who has no legs or arms, right? That's the only way I'm going to have power over him, because testosterone is a powerful drug. And so in any situation, if you approach a woman and say, "Will you just have sex?" the immediate question is, will I be safe? That's the bigger question, not just I've got to gatekeep, I've got to make sure that I proliferate the best genes, right? That's not really what's happening. It's more of a safety question.
Well, I would say in addition to a safety, I agree with you, it's a safety, but it's also, even if like safety, like let's say the girl has like 2 security guards with her and she knows that safety is not an issue. It's still like a woman is just not going to be that. A girl gets offers to fuck all the time, 24/7 on Instagram, walking down the street, and she can't fuck like 20 times a day with 20 different guys. So why would she pick a random guy that she knows nothing about, who she's not attracted to yet, right? Because she doesn't know much about him. All she knows about him is how he looks, right? And it's also when you go up to a girl and just say, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" You display very poor social tact. So that implies to her that your social skills are pretty poor, which is generally not attractive. Because guys who have good game are not going to go up to girls and say, "Hey, do you want to have sex with me?" Right? They're going to sweet talk her a little bit. They're going to be smooth, charming. They're going to create sexual tension, and then they're going to, just very smoothly transition towards sex.
I would say that showing good providership cues will enable that feeling of safety for the girl. So again, when I'm referring to unconditional, I think it's mostly a combination of that attraction, which is obviously just like from the black pill perspective, attraction is just, genetic value, basically, genetic quality. And then I guess safety would be a willingness to provide.
What do you think about love and chemistry?
No, I think there's way more to safety than a willingness to provide like the girl resources. I think a lot of girls have their own jobs, like a woman who makes 300,000.
Well, I think women feel unsafe because of the fear of abandonment when she's pregnant, right? So
I think there's a lot more.
Providership is fundamental to it too.
No, but I think it more has to do with physical safety. Like you could kill her or murder her or R-word her, like any number of things. Like, I think that's more, yes, maybe further down the line, she's worried about being abandoned. But I think when you approach a girl right away, the first thing she's thinking about, are you a safety threat to her? Like physical safety, like as in, are you going to attack her or do something else to her?
I would just wanted to ask you, what do you think about the concepts of love or chemistry?
You're asking me?
Mhm.
Can you expand on that?
Well, what do you think love is when people talk about this? Because everything you're describing. So I think I've narrowed down why specifically your worldview is so tragic to me. You've been lied to, and you've been lied in a couple of ways. AWOLT is maybe the biggest one to me, actually. I didn't realize this when we first chatted, but the idea that all women are the same, all women are like that, I think is what you said.
That's what my worldview is predicated on. And it has to be, right? In order for me to believe in radical self-improvement, I necessarily have to believe in AWOLT, if that makes sense.
It's just not true. This is the issue. I'm going to tell you right now, and I know that this is like kind of world breaking. All women are not like that. Many women are like that. There are norms that you can make. There are norms that are going to apply better to 18 to 25-year-olds than 25 to 30-year-olds. But the idea that, for example, all women are like that isn't true. And how I know this is if I can point to even 3 exceptions of the rule, which I could find very easily, then we know that your presumption is wrong. And what's sadder to me is essentially you outlined at the beginning, you said, essentially you feel disconnected and far from society, like on the outside observing in. And if you believe all women are the same, you've already determined that all women can never see you as anything but this outside creature. There's no way you can ever access them. Sure.
Can I interrupt?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, like, obviously it doesn't account for these highly abnormal exceptions. So you can find 3 women that don't conform to the definition of AWOLT. That's like saying, oh, if a woman doesn't have a vagina, for example, if she's a hermaphrodite, then I debunk AWOLT.
What if I can find 50 examples?
In what sample?
Of women.
Examples of what?
Whatever presumptions you're going to make.
The behavior I described, the presumption I described is a universal, unconditional, again, I don't know how to put it eloquently, but again, an unwillingness to engage in unconditional sex, let's just say, is the presumption.
Well, I want to explore that. So when you say unconditional, so do you think a woman, like, if she like finds you attractive and she likes your personality, she would need to get something out of you to fuck you? Like,
No. But that's a condition, right? Her liking your personality.
Oh, well, it's a condition.
Men will fuck goats, right?
But then isn't it the same thing on the man's side? The condition is that you find her attractive.
Yes, but by unconditional, basically, if there was a single woman, and obviously this is hyperbolic, if there was a single woman who would accept unconditional sex advances, then the incel problem would completely disappear. Right?
But men don't accept.
Men aren't unconditional.
Yeah, men aren't unconditional. But
they are. That's the point I'm trying to make.
No, but they need to find the girl attractive.
Then they'd be buying sex robots. Then they would be buying goats.
Attractiveness is extremely low.
Okay,
so why don't you just fuck goats? Literally, why don't you just literally go fuck goats and not be incels? Why isn't that sufficient?
The threshold.
But some incels try and they still get rejected by those women.
By the goats?
We're talking about pig women. Like, there have been Blackpillers who have conducted online dating experiments, and pig women were still able to generate hundreds of matches. Alex has done this himself with his Face app.
Yeah, wait, I agree. So, okay, so if you're saying that the what's it called, the barrier to entry is or whatever, the barrier is like a lot higher for women, I would agree with that. But it's not unconditional on either side. For men, for the vast majority of men to have sex with a woman, the condition is that they find her attractive, right? That's got to be a condition. Maybe another condition is that, for example, she's not dating any of her friends. So there are conditions for men. But yeah, I would agree with you.
They find women attractive insofar as they find the goats that they fuck attractive too, right? It's like
no. Wait, hang on. Hold on. Whoa, hang on. 90% of women I see walking around the street, I will not fuck. I do not find them attractive. There's no animal walking around that I've seen at the zoo that I want to fuck that I find attractive. So it's not that low. It's not.
I kind of want to talk about like why this worldview is tragic. I thought that was interesting.
Right, But I disagree with this idea that men are just willing to fuck like animals because we're so horny. Like this is, maybe there's dudes you know, but certainly doesn't apply to me. Like
I mean,
95% of
they're
women I
willing
see
to
walking
fuck
around-
mutants, right? So,
I mean, okay. I mean, part of the
More
problem for
fucking units.
incels is, first of all, probably calling really unattractive women mutants. Like, I think
no, but
I
these
think
aren't
that-
real women. These are photoshopped images of obese women with a pig nose.
But
So
who's
I'm not
fucking them?
disparaging. I'm not
who's
disparaging.
these women
unattractive-
don't even exist. Who's fucking them?
Yeah, who's fucking them?
Well, they
Like,
generate matches.
And then the men just say, "Yes, I would fuck her."
Well, I don't remember the specific
I
details.
think 95% of men have some kind of physical standard. I think it's a very, very small percentage of men who just literally will put their dick in anything. I think the vast
Yeah.
majority of men have some kind of standard, even if that standard is pretty low, there is some kind of a standard.
Absolutely. And essentially what you're saying is like all women are like that, and that all women will sometimes have boundaries about sex. And it's like, of course, anyone can say no to sex at any
But
time.
I will
And
agree.
yes,
I will agree with you that women are more selective, but both sides have
sure.
standards, yeah.
but you've like, if this is part of the tragedy, you've functionally reduced men down to these like ape-like creatures who are just like running around,
That is my
slathering
goal.
at the jaw, hoping to
Yes.
stick their penis in as many things as possible. Right? That's sad. That's a sad way to conceptualize yourself, if that's your self-view, and a sad way to conceptualize others, because it doesn't have to be true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that about yourself, if you believe all women are like that, the reality is that if you go out into the world convinced that all women are some sort of way, the reality is that you find the evidence for that belief. Self-fulfilling prophecies are miserable things. And this is why the black pill is so fucking tragic, is it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where men attach their value to their looks or their wallet exclusively, and they decide that no women will ever want them because they look a certain way, and so they focus on things like getting super tall, and that's all they ever work on, when they don't realize that the whole reason women were rejecting them in the first place is because they were willing to say things like, I would fuck even a goat, a mutant, ugly woman, right? All I'm going to get is dirt. And it's like, people aren't attracted to you because you're unattractive necessarily. Like a large portion of it is like, you're just being mean and nasty, right? Like it's a huge threat.
I think the disconnect between the Evo Psych model and the social science model is that you kind of said it yourself. Like the human brain, I believe at least that the human brain, we have these adaptive advantages that were molded in an ancestral environment, right? And based on that, I think that human nature is not only innate, but that it can be kind of knowable, like the laws of physics, for example. And that's why, again, I reduce men, or you might think I have a dim view of
I think you have a wrong view. That's the problem. It's not just dim. The problem is that if it was true and dim, I'd be like, well, that's fucking tragic, right? But it is what it is. Here's a dim reality. East Indian men are way less sexually desired than women. That's a dim, true thing, right? That's just dim.
Yes.
The problem is that you're being dim and you're lying about reality. So you're just like self-concocting a depressive recipe for no reason.
Well, I would say this. Okay, here's my piece. I do kind of want to wrap up, but you can stay on angry while we bring the next person on.
Thanks.
But I have a slightly different. I actually kind of agree. I'm kind of in the middle. I do think that Kyla underplays looks, but I think you overplay them. I think this is, to me, the tragic thing is that
Well, I'm not like a scribe. Like, I don't think that, if you're not 6'5" Chad, you're not going to get a relationship. I've never made that statement.
You clearly are a smart guy. I can tell from talking to you. You're not a dumbass. You're above average intelligence, right? But I think that you have overanalyzed the shit out of this to the point where it's actually working against you. And I think that you have maxed out the looks part of the equation. For example, like doing the limb lengthening surgery is a very extreme way to looks max, right? But you're really focused on that. But I think you are not focusing at all on the other side of the coin, which is your game and your personality. And, I remember we've talked in the past, I asked you, like, have you done approach girls? Are you out there? And that you've told me the answer is no. I'm assuming the answer is still no. And that is what you're going to find. You're not going to get results because while you may get taller, you may get more jacked, your social skills are still going to stay very poor. And that is a necessary prerequisite for the vast majority of girls. So you're just going to be limiting yourself. That's going to be your bottleneck. And it's going to be a bottleneck for a while until you actively tackle that part of the component. And you can keep pushing the looks maxing parts and keep getting more and more diminishing returns. But really the big elephant in the room is going to be your social skills, right? And that, if you actually work on that, increase that, that's going to give you a way better ROI than all these like diminishing looks maxing stuff that you can still do.
Yeah, so I actually somewhat agree with that. I'm just going to say, like, I want to be in environments with the least amount of entropy as possible, right? So I can manufacture this so-called personality, right? It will make it easier. For example, again, I talked about this frauding effect with a pet, right? So I agree with you about the game and personality and where it comes into play. However, we might disagree on the macro versus the micro, Alex. And I think game on a micro level is like very, very difficult to quantify. For example, like the words you're actually saying to a woman, how you perform on dates, maybe setting up your house a certain way. But I think the really important aspect of game is actually knowing like when to approach, what type of women to approach, how to kind of set up your profile. I think that stuff is super important. And then, yeah, you're right to some extent about the fact that I'm waiting for a future that will never come because I'm just going to keep pursuing these looks maxing gains on this, on this hedonic treadmill or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's sad. Like that, the reality is that like, it's sad. Like because you're neurodivergent, like
it's not sad though, because I think I will
so
succeed.
Sad.
I think
you're
I will
so
succeed.
Smart, dude. You're smart. And you're nice. Like you're actually like not a bad guy to talk to, even though like I've basically told you your life's a tragedy. You're still respectful.
No,
towards me.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a tragedy.
I get that. What I'm saying. Hold on. Stop. You got to listen to my words. Listen to my words. Please, I beg you, because I'm not trying to gotcha. I'm not trying to dunk on you. I'm talking to you like human to human. And what I'm saying,
trying to be good faith as well. Yeah.
So yeah, just listen, okay? What I'm saying is that there are really good qualities about you, right? One thing that's really cool when I listen to you, probably because of your neurodivergence, is you think about the world in an incredibly systematic way. And like that can be like, I'm going to tell you right now, some of the world leading researchers, like some of the smartest academics and scientists in the world are typically autistic because they can see the world in such a different way. The issue is that you've also decided in this worldview a couple of things that aren't true. One of them is that all women are like that. And I think you've kind of decided no woman will ever love me. I think you've fundamentally decided that. And that's really sad to me. And I'm meaning that as a human to human because I actually think there's a lot of qualities about you that are worthwhile.
Yeah, so the notion that no woman will love me, I think, it's probably true, but there's also other, there would be other not incentives. I would be disincentivized from pursuing long-term relationships for other reasons, such as, the inability to, transfer my height, for example. And also I don't, neurodivergence and depression, for example, anxiety, highly heritable. I wouldn't want my future child to struggle with a lot.
Not highly heritable. Just to be clear, depression is heritable at a 30% rate. And just to be clear, what heritable means is probability. So there's a 30% probabilistic chance that you would pass that on. So like, as far as genes go, if anything, I don't know if your neurodivergence is autism or what specifically, but that's actually going to be more heritable than the depression, anxiety.
Well, I would say depression and anxiety, is to some extent within your control. When I was like 19 and I wasn't getting laid and I was really bummed out, I was really fucking depressed, like borderline suicidal. I also had a lot of anxiety. I'm not depressed anymore, because that problem has gone away. I still have some anxiety, but it's not as nearly as bad, crippling social anxiety that I used to have. So to some extent, you can work on that. Like I guarantee you, if I could wave a magic wand and for the next 3 months of your life, you're just going to start fucking hot girls and have, hanging out with hot girls and have these relationships, I bet you like 50% of your depression would go away.
Well, yeah, I'm claiming to be a lot happier than I was. But anyway, I worry about the transferability of a lot of these things. And if I looks max, I worry about my height not being transferred to my offspring. I also, and again, you can disagree with
you
me,
were tall beforehand, weren't you 5'11" before?
No. I was gonna say again, if you're in a committed relationship with someone and you don't have children with them, that relationship will invariably fizzle out from my perspective.
No, I mean, it's very rare that couples.
You're not going to coexist with someone in monogamous bliss if you don't have kids with them.
Relationships that don't have children, that like they're very rare, but the ones that do exist actually have a really, really high rate of success. Like I know multiple couples that are like 45.
My girlfriend for 2 years. We don't have any kids. My mom's boyfriend's parents don't have any kids. They've been together for like fucking 30 years. My dad has a girlfriend. They don't have any kids. Yeah, no, I know a lot of relationships.
Right. And then another factor is that I would probably prefer a traditional partner. And again, I'm not condemning women in this day and age for pursuing education because it's obviously in their best interest. But again, if I'm 28, for example, I would want my partner to be 20. And I'm not going to expect that, but that is what I would want in an ideal world. You know, we champion women for having high unattainable standards. I'm not going to pretend like my standards are achievable, though. That's the difference.
Bro, I just feel like, though, like if you stopped over analyzing and you really focused on getting over social anxiety and learning game, in a year or two, you could have all the things you want.
And probably stop the nihilism coping, because I don't even know if I believe you. I'm going to be honest. A lot of this sounds like manifesting, where you're just like manifesting certain levels of like this like nihilistic, deterministic, like we are robot world. I don't know if I fully believe you on all of it. I think it feels comforting because when you're failing and struggling at life and have always been rejected, it's easier to basically like chalk it up to like some element of determinism. The issue is that like
a few reasons though, like the transferability, the high standards thing, the progressivism. It's not just one thing.
I mean, I do think, no offense, there's an element of cope to what you're saying. Like, I think there's plenty of girls that will meet your all the criteria you want. I'll do an extreme thing. If not in the U.S., then certainly in other countries. But in the U.S. as well, there's plenty of girls who meet that criteria. I think really the biggest thing that's working in your favor is one, your attitude and your over analyzing, and two, the fact that you don't really know game or have social skills. And I think that you could fix that.
I mean, I can explain it, but yeah. I can't
but that's not, but that doesn't work that way. I can't show up on a date and explain to the girl.
Coach white pill maxing, yeah.
Right, yeah. Coach Whitepill can explain game, but in terms of actually being able to speak game,
Here's the homework I would love to assign you. I would love to assign you the question of I want you to explore love and chemistry and really try to understand what's going on there, because I'm sure you've seen like friends or family or people fall in love and they do the dumbest shit ever, right? Like I have friends who had one fixed worldview and then they fell in love and they're like, turns out it was all a cope. And now I'm just in love and I'm just happy, right? I'm really curious how you personally would conceptualize love and come to understand it, because I think it's like an integral, like when we talk about all these dating and all these metrics and systems and formulas, I think they're cool. They're based, they're interesting. I fucking love science. So I'm all for this structure, but there's this element of relationships that is like the unknowable magic, which is love, which is people.
I think it's just like sucky wucky at the end of the day. Like,
it's just not though. If you've experienced it, it's just not. It's just not. There's something wholly unique to having somebody in your life who sees you, loves you, and understands. And there's nothing more satisfying than waking up and like feeling their back against yours. And it is sucky wucky. It's cringe as fuck. And it is the backbone of joy, right? There's nothing better than waking up and hearing your partner snoring loud as fuck, by the way, right? They're just snoring away because you know that means that they're with you, that they're safe, and that you're still together. Like this is just what joy is tied temporary.
To. Like you could relish those experiences in the moment, but like, why do couples just don't last?
Nothing. Well, hang on.
Why do elements like why does infertility and infidelity?
Because now is all we have. Because now is all we have.
We're all gonna die one day. Nothing is permanent. All of us are gonna be dead in 100 years, unless like fucking science comes a long way. Also, let me clarify.
Yeah, I agree. So then why do you put stock in long-term relationships then?
Because it's really, really good to be in a relationship with someone you love and care about, who has the same values as you, who you can make experiences with, who you can spend time with, who you can just laugh with. There's a lot. It's one of those things like you kind of have to experience it. But
I think it's for kids. Obviously, that would be mine.
No, but I have no desire to have kids. Like
it is an immature response to say that it is like just for kids. The reality is that like long-term relationships, not even sexual ones, long-term relationships are the biggest predictor of life satisfaction and happiness. Like that's just the reality, is having basically people on your left and your right. What do I mean by which? Sorry.
That long-term relationships are the most predictive of lifetime happiness. What do you mean by that?
When we look at protective versus risk factors for mental well-being, there's a bunch of things that we could probably understand be risk factors. Divorce, a dead child, bunch of stuff like that predict obviously people being less happier later in life. Having lots of long-term stable relationships is a very solid predictor that in the next 10 and the next 15 years, if we come back to you, you're going to be happy, healthy, and well. Essentially, you would report of saying, I am happy, I am content.
Yeah, I think there's an element of truth to that, because relationships do pacify men, right? That are, prone maybe to potentially violent behavior on their own. So
I think it makes them happy too.
when left to their own devices.
I don't know about that. I don't think, like, for me, like, I've been pacified since being in a relationship, nor do I think I would have been prone to violent behavior if I didn't have a girlfriend. We do got to get the next person on. I don't know if you want to stay on, Angry, or
if you want me to. Yeah, it's up to you.
It's up to you, bro.
I know I can be annoying sometimes. So
no, I don't think
you're not annoying.
No, you're not annoying. You're cool to talk to. It's just that.
All right, I'll stay on. That's
fine. Yo, what up?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Hello.
Pretty good.
So yeah, I messaged you, Alex, was it about a week ago, because I've been introduced to your TikTok from a friend, and
okay.
I think she showed me this like critique of your videos that was mostly like comedic by someone named Chad on YouTube. And I just I saw your kind of your takes on feminism were the ones that really I found to be more contentious, but you didn't really go too in depth, obviously, because it's TikTok. So yeah, I guess from my perspective, you said feminism was, if I'm not mistaken, had been like taken over by radicals in a way that made it kind of impossible for you to identify with, which I think is.
Yeah, so I think what I said was, I think the modern feminism movement has been largely hijacked by some extremists with shit like, oh, men are pigs, I hate men, fuck men are keeping us down. I think feminism initially, when it came out, was about equal rights, which is something that I think 99% of men support. I don't think there's really anyone in this chat on my channel who's like, fuck women having the right to vote, fuck women, whatever, like having this and that, the same rights. But I think now it's become about hating on men. And to be fair, I think most women who identify themselves as feminists are not about this like extreme hatred. It's just like usually the loudest people are the people on the most extreme. You see this with Democrats and Republicans, right? Like most Republicans are not like these crazy fucking election deniers, but they just have the loudest voice. You see this with the left too. Like most Dems are not like, fuck the police and Tifa type of thing, but they're the ones who have the loudest voice. And I think the feminism movement is no different.
Okay, yeah, understood. I mean, I think that there's definitely a tendency for, especially if you're paying attention to things like Twitter, social media, etc. You see those really loud and niche voices. I suppose that when it comes to something that's as socially massive a movement as feminism, it just feels kind of, it feels like you're not necessarily engaging with a concept, which is like, me personally, I'm a political science student. Feminism is like a contested term, which basically broadly would describe a lens through which you view the progression of history and how women, their social position has been affected by the culmination of kind of Evo Psych, human history, society, like everything together. So I guess if you're just looking at those radical Twitter feminists, you might come away with that perspective. But would you not agree that there are significant social pressures which women experience, which men don't?
I think historically women have had a hard time, just like anyone who's not like a white man. I think also black people have had a hard time. Hispanic people have a hard time, blah, blah, blah. But I think most of the things that feminism set out to correct have already been corrected. So it's kind of like, at this point, it's like, what are they even fighting for? I think I see a lot of straw man arguments that they make, like, oh, a woman makes 81 cents on a dollar for every dollar a man makes. That's been like very thoroughly debunked by every economist. So yeah, you'd have to tell me specific things and I could tell you where I stand on it. But I feel like most of the things that the feminism movement set out to accomplish has already been accomplished.
Okay, yeah. So that, for example, is a pretty key example of a misrepresentation of what that argument centers around. So whenever people mention like general earning comparisons, what they're essentially operating off of is that most likely in a world absent regular society, there's probably going to be some level of difference between various groupings of people, but it's probably not going to be 20%. So a woman's labor value is probably not in general going to be 20% less than a man's. So that is an indication that somewhere in society, be it through how women are raised, how they are represented, there's some level of negative pressure against them also coming into play when they're getting promotions or negotiating pay, where their pay is becoming less valuable than, or their earnings are diminished compared to those of a man, which is absent their actual labor value. It doesn't mean that there's like a direct like, oh, you know, like I've just hired a woman, so I'm going to pay her less than a man I just hired. I don't think anyone would ever argue that.
Yeah, Callum, the problem is the data doesn't really support what you're saying. So when they compare men and women working the same jobs with the same level of experience, with the same qualifications, they actually make the same exact amount of money on average, right? The problem is that men and women generally gravitate towards different career fields. So when you take an aggregate of all the jobs that women work and all the jobs that men work, which is what that, you know, that argument is based on, because men tend to gravitate more towards STEM and towards, you know, jobs where like, you know, there's a higher chance of injury, like construction, and women tend to gravitate more towards like office jobs and HR. Of course, there's going to be an aggregate difference, but when you like look at men and women working the same jobs, same experience, they actually getting paid the same exact amount of money on average.
I would contend with that data slightly. I do believe that there's no way to completely diminish the gap, but I would also say that that phrase that you just used, which is where women gravitate towards a certain kind of job, I don't think that you can say that that is a truism kind of absent all of the societal pressures that exist. We've seen very large spikes in specific industries when women get a huge representative role in media, for example. You have certain situations where basically all of our study shows that as we have progressed more towards equal representation and equal opportunity and the removal of some of those old vestiges of like male patriarchal power within different industries, women feel more encouraged to go into those industries. And so I think that like to say that it's just completely like women just completely have one direction in which they tend, and that's the one that is currently where our trends are going, doesn't seem to be borne out by like how we recognize societal pressures to work.
Well, okay, so would you agree that men and women are fundamentally different in some ways?
For sure.
Okay, would you agree that a man and a woman's brain is fundamentally different in some ways?
Yeah, they're physically different, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
On aggregate.
Okay, yeah, and would you agree that men and women have completely different cascade of hormones?
Oh, for sure, yeah, absolutely.
So if there's all these fundamental differences between men and women, why is it so crazy to think that women might gravitate towards different fields? For example, testosterone directly, affects your risk taking, right? So if you're a man who's suffering from low testosterone, you might be really scared. You might avoid any kind of risk. And once you get on TRT, that problem kind of goes away. At least that's kind of, to some extent what happened to me and other people I know. So if a woman who has a 1/100th of the testosterone man has, why would she be as likely to go into dangerous fields like construction or like jobs where her physical safety is at risk? Like it would stand to reason that she would probably, on average, of course, there's some women who are different, prefer jobs that are a little bit less risky. Well, less risky jobs, pay less money on average. So if you just follow the logical chain, I don't see anything crazy about this.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right about risk aversion. I guess I would just say that I'm not particularly aware of the massive amounts of money that people are generating from working in construction. I know that there's obviously a lot of upward mobility and that you can earn money in construction. But if we look at things like law, the medical field, various kinds of STEM majors where women are underrepresented that don't necessarily have anything to do with risk, I would contend that there's that gap is not explained by the risk aversion that you would see in women. And also, I don't think that the risk aversion
well, there's preference selection as well, right? Like in general, women tend to prefer more caretaking roles, right? Like women are so fucking base that even when you try to pay them, they still pick roles where they're just helping people and being fucking nice.
It's true.
Like it's crazy. The most common job for women is being a goddamn nurse, and we all know nurses are fucking lifesavers, right? So it's like part of this is probably in part due to like selection. We could talk about how certain female dominated roles in society are maybe underpaid compared to like what they deserve. And I think that that's a really valid conversation. But like a lot of women don't go into STEM because a lot of women don't prefer STEM. Like fucking engineering sucks. It's boring. It's all numbers. It's all things. People and body parts and mushy stuff is way more interesting for just a lot of women.
Yeah, Kyla, I would actually agree with you on that. I think teachers and nurses should be paid more money, but I think that's a different, discussion. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that some jobs that are largely women, which are more like supportive roles, like being a nurse, being a caretaker, being a teacher, should be rewarded more in society, right? If I was the president, I could wave that magic wand, I would. But going back to, it's not just risk. That's just one factor of it. But yes, what Kyla said, there's preferences. So generally speaking, women tend to not gravitate towards STEM. If you look at, for example, chess grandmasters, right? Stuff like that, it's literally like fucking like the top 100, like 99% of them are men, right? So the men just tend to gravitate towards more analytical things. Of course, there's some women who are exception, and women tend to gravitate more towards social, emotional things, which is why HR departments are always dominated by women versus accounting departments are always dominated by men. That's not a coincidence.
It's funny you bring up chess. I was actually, while I was waiting, I ended up playing a couple games there myself. But I think that that is another, I mean, again, also I think I've seen some data that indicates that on a general bell curve of most extremes, men tend to fall to either side a little bit more heavily than women do.
Very true.
Be it in like whatever
Yep.
field. But I think that
I think it's
generally
variance, what you're talking about.
Yeah, very fair. There could be a name for it, absolutely. But it doesn't seem to me like we've achieved a level of parity within social pressures that you can basically, and I'm not necessarily prescribing that women be forced down any specific role or set of future fields or whatever. But if we look at the data regarding how representation can affect the number of people of any specific category who feel comfortable entering a space, then I think that you can see that there's extremely profound ways in which we can basically shift the general preferences of women wanting to go into these more analytical fields. I don't think that their preferences to go into what they've historically gone into is absolutely purely based on their biology right now. I think that there's still a significant level of social pressure which is keeping them out of some of these areas which they otherwise could go into. And I think that is.
Well, let's.
What solution do you have for that? Like what?
Oh, I was just about to get to that. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
You could say it, Kevin. So yeah, Callum, my question would be, okay, like, fine, what would be the solution? Because I'm assuming you're not for equal outcomes. So let me explain. Like, equal opportunities means like me and Kyla apply to the same college, same career, we have the same chance of getting in. Equal outcomes would be the college is like, okay, we need to take 50% men, 50% women. The engineering department at Boeing is like, whoa, we have too many men. We need to hire more women, even if they're not as qualified as the men. So I'm assuming you're not for forcing equal outcomes. Is that correct?
No, generally not. I mean, I think there's certain kinds of affirmative action which can make sense, but I also don't know what you mean by equal opportunity, because individual to individual, there's going to be such a variance of opportunity based on your upbringing, your net worth. Like,
means
there's so
like
many
access. Typically, we mean like access. So,
Yeah,
like in the past, there was like systematic oppression where like women just couldn't apply to university, right? Like back then, there was a vast disparity in equal opportunity. Women just couldn't go to school. Women couldn't have certain jobs, right? There was like
Understood.
systematic stuff. So that's kind of when we're talking about equal opportunity is, okay, well, there's not really any systematic stuff barring women. So now you basically, if I'll still man you, since you're a little bit 1v4 or whatever, but you now have to make the case in point that the systemic stuff that still exists is enough to still account for like some level of disparity that women don't even have equal opportunity. That would be the argument that I would aim for.
For sure, yeah. And I think that there's a pretty clear example there for when you're talking about equal opportunity. If you take the huge number of families, I mean, obviously there's no way to necessarily gather strict data on how parents interact with their children, but by and large, there's been a history of young boys being pushed by their parents into STEM fields and women having the exact opposite. And I think that even though we're making our way towards some level of social progression, would you say that there's equal opportunity for a young boy who expresses some interest in the science field and then is basically pushed and encouraged by his parents all the way through, versus a woman who has that same level of interest but is basically discouraged, or her parents try to push her in a slightly different direction, or she never sees any woman in her life who is occupying that kind of role?
Well,
Yeah.
So they have equal opportunity.
on an institutional, wait, let me just make this point. On an institutional level, there's it absolutely is equal. So a college is not going to be less likely to take a girl. If anything, you could argue with some of the big companies, it's actually the opposite. Like, they're actually actively trying to get more women than men. But okay, yeah. So on institutional level now in terms of like, your parenting, that largely depends on your family. Like, for example, in my family, like, yeah, I'm an only child, but I have a lot of female cousins. All my cousins, like one of my cousins works at Google. Like, all my female cousins were encouraged to pursue all that kind of stuff. So there's absolutely no kind of, like, in my family, not equal opportunity between the men and the women. I'm sure there are families where it's not like that, but then I'm assuming your solution would not be for the government to come in and force parents how to parent. So then what would we even do about that? Like, that just to me seems like a case of like, like how to be a good parent. And I would argue, yeah, if I was a parent and I had a daughter, my daughter wanted to pursue STEM, I would probably encourage her to do that. I wouldn't talk her out of it. But again, like, what are we going to do about that? We're going to have the government come in and tell people how to parent? I'm assuming the answer is no. So then what else is there really that can be done about that?
No, absolutely not. But I think that that's exactly why I think that we need to basically remove the power from these extreme kind of niche people who are, whatever, expounding their ridiculous opinions on Twitter or wherever you might contend with a feminist, and maintain the kind of more reasonable goals that I think are still very valid.
Who do you think, sorry, when you're saying the people of extreme power, who are you specifically talking to?
Sorry, not
Or
people of
about?
extreme power, people with extreme opinions, the ones that Alex was mentioning, because he was saying that he sees a lot of feminists who have crazy, like, anti-men opinions.
But I don't think we should remove them. We should make fun of them, and we should stigmatize them. But I don't think they should be deplatformed. I think they have just as much of a right to express their voice, even if what they're saying is pure horseshit.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't saying that we should deplatform them or anything. What I'm saying is that the discussions around feminism, which should be engaged with, should be ones that are meaningful and have to do with, like, actual attainable goals, such as removing social barriers for women to enter fields that they might otherwise still not feel comfortable entering. And I think that the more people there are who basically say, "Oh, I don't want to be a feminist," it feels like, they're all anti-men. It feels like women have exactly equal rights and social ability as men do now. I feel like those kinds of conversations are the ones that are getting in the way of that last vestige of patriarchy, which still kind of remains.
All right, Callum, I just waved a magic wand. I made you president and dictator of the United States. So what would be some of the laws and legislation you would enact to fix this problem? And I'll tell you one by one if I agree or disagree with them.
Legislation as the president? I personally, well, I'm a Canadian, so I don't know.
You have supreme power in America.
You're God.
In
You're
the
God
world.
of the world.
What are some legislation that you would pass to fix this issue?
I think that the number one place that you would have to start would be education. I know that there are a lot of specific kinds of grants, which can only be, there are like minority grants and things like that. I would increase the accessibility to those. And as well, I would try to find a way to minimize the ability for people who are both minorities.
When you say extend accessibility, do you mean like what, we advertise them more, or we increase the grant amount?
Increase the grant amount, increase the advertise them more, I suppose. And I also would try to find a way where, because it feels to me like a lot of grants require a large level of effort on the part of the future recipient. You have to write several essays. You basically have to have a lot of information and a lot of.
I think that's good. You shouldn't just be given money for just like, like waving your hand. I think that's good that you have to put money, that you have to invest effort in order to receive free money from the government.
I think that there's a level of that which is true, but I think also by the same token, people who have, I apologize, I sort of tend to fall into more intersectional views when I'm discussing these sorts of things, but in general, when we're looking at grants which are for people who feel disaffected, be they women, minorities, the poor, however it may be, they may have less mental space for that kind of endeavor. And I think that if you can seek out a woman who has exceptional grades in science, whatever, has certain levels of extracurriculars, but potentially doesn't have that extra space or knowledge of whatever the grant may be, I think that could be a worthwhile like way of moving forward. But I also generally don't think that like there's a lot of legislative stuff left to be done.
Well, exactly.
One thing I would really encourage you when you're looking at intersectional lenses, which I think are really valuable, is you want to make sure that that you're not using an intersectional lens to infantilize an entire group of people, right? Like empowering doesn't mean making things easier for some group as far as like lowering the standard. What empowering actually means is like giving the necessary leg up so that they can meet the same standard as everyone else, right? So like I think the grades grants, like giving more specific grade grants for like just achieving certain high academics in a certain space is totally fine. But the idea of like removing essays when they're required to be like, well, women aren't in the headspace to be able to write essays. It's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, why wouldn't they be in the headspace more than any other college student by this point? point. Like there's nothing intersectional about being a woman that makes me less capable of writing a grant essay than somebody else. And to assume that there is this problem is necessarily somewhat infantilizing. And so I think like the intersectional lens you're pointing out of like acknowledging different difficulties. So when you're talking about like an indigenous population, right? I would encourage actually to have less essays for indigenous populations, because we know at a systematic level that they actually typically have way less rigorous like education. They can never get enough teachers out to these reserves. And I think it's worth rewarding grades more than just like specific essays. That might be a really valuable thing. But you wouldn't want to say just because you're a woman, you just get money for grades and you don't have to write an essay if the grant normally would require an essay.
I would agree. Yeah, sorry. I think that potentially with women specifically, that would definitely be the case. I think for one thing, though, I generally would say that I would infantilize any particular group, because I kind of infantilize any. I don't think that any group of people has kind of achieved what they've achieved based on their merits. Like I think that any group of people generally is going to perform predictably based on their environment. And so that you have to add like external factors in order to move them within that environment. Like I don't expect, poor people to pull themselves out of poverty. I don't expect Black people to change their situation in the States. I don't expect Indigenous people to change their situation.
At a group level, hold on, just to be clear, at a group level, at an individual level, you absolutely do expect these things, because if you at an individual level don't, it's actually still benevolent sexism, racism, etc. So at a group, that's fine. But the problem is that what transfers is to individuals.
It's like the bigotry of low expectations. That's the term for that. Okay, Callum, you said potentially expand the grants. What else would you do from a macro legislative perspective?
To be honest, as much as I generally don't like deplatforming, I feel like there are certain because again, you said I'm not the president. You said I was just the god of America, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's make it a little bit more simple. You are the president of America. You can pass any kind of legislature you want. The Senate is completely on your side. They're like, Callum, we're with you. We will pass any bill you want.
Okay, well, a very, very clear and key pertinent current discussion would be I would reinstate Roe v. Wade, or I would find some way to repass abortion laws, because that's a very clear way.
I agree with you on that, although I don't think that has anything to do with...
I totally disagree. Alex and I have had debates on this. We could debate abortion if you want.
No,
I don't want to turn the whole conversation, but yeah.
No. I would agree.
I'm extremely passionate about this issue. My dad works for a pro-life organization, so...
I would be personally in favor of that for different reasons than you, but I don't think that will do anything to fix the gap between men and women on a aggregate level. Well, actually, maybe it could. Maybe potentially, yeah. Okay.
Well, fine. Again, sorry. So my point is that like the goal of feminism now is not strictly to close the wage gap. Like it's just basically to point out and to view various different kinds of social pressures which negatively affect women. And to some degree can negatively affect men. It's not like we've been discussing this earnings cap specifically, but the banning of, or rather the overturning of Roe v. Wade is an example of women's rights, which has currently like regressed, and is like a part of the amalgam of ways in which women, I think, are still at a worse position societally than men, strictly on those gender terms.
Callum, here's the thing, because you said something that I kind of thought you were going to say, like in terms of like, where I'm like, okay, what legislation would you pass? Like, you don't really have too much that you could do to address this issue, right? Which to me suggests that largely the discussion of this issue is, and I mean, no offense to you, mental masturbation. It's just like people talking about shit that there really can't be anything done about, that cannot be measured, that cannot be quantified. And it's like, to me, it's like, we got like some real fucking problems. Like we actually have people in America who literally can't eat and can't feed themselves. We have like 50,000 people dying from lack of access to healthcare, right? We have real issues that kill people. That is like that can be fixed through legislation, and that can be fixed through this stuff. There's practical, tangible solutions for. That's what people should be focused on, not this issue that can't really be quantified, that can't really be addressed, that you're not really even sure who the
hold on, that's not super fair. In fairness, like nobody comes to a debate like this prepped with like, these are the 17 policies I would immediately implement as a like undergrad student to like solve sexism. Like that's not really fair. It's the same as like if somebody's asking you and then you go, well, give me an example of that, and you're like, I didn't come with a Rolodex Rolodex prepped, right? So like that's not fair. And while I agree that there are bigger issues, it doesn't mean that, for example, systemic problems within like the way that we treat women versus men societally aren't still pertinent and worth talking about. Well, like you can have like people who work with homeless people, and that's really good work, and also people who work at a more like systemic level to like, for example, encourage women to be like comfortable with STEM. My challenge to Callum would be, I don't think feminism needs to focus at getting women at men's table. I think feminism needs to focus on what are feminine attributes and why they're undervalued in our society. Why don't we care about nurses? Why don't we? Why are we pushing women towards STEM? What if they want to be nurses? Why can't we just respect nurses more? Right? Like these would be the questions I would ask rather than trying to shove women into STEM. It's like, well, if they want to go into STEM, we should make it accessible. We should normalize it, which I think it actually mostly is. Like girl boss power. Like I'm a girl who's a lot more like sciencey. I was going into STEM originally, and all that happened was I got celebrated. Like the reality is like I didn't actually face a lot of pressure. There's probably a bit of pressure internally as far as like men being creepy in engineering classes and always coming to hit on you and stuff like that. But I think a bigger question for feminism, and this is what fourth wave feminism brings up a lot that I think is actually really interesting, is the question of why we value certain things. And the reality is like we value traditionally masculine things a lot. And the solution to feminism isn't to teach women to be men. The solution to feminism is to teach society to value women for what they bring to the table, for what feminine traits are.
I would actually agree with that. I'm fully in favor of paying teachers and nurses more. Yeah, 100%. So if that's it, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't think the solution is trying to fix this imbalance between men and women, which is largely, in my opinion, as a result of biology and men and women gravitating towards different things and having different preferences. So like, I don't think it's going to be good for society if we get 50% of women to be engineers. Like a lot of women just don't fucking want to be engineers. They want to either be moms, they want to be caretakers, they want to be HR, they want to, whatever, do OnlyFans, whatever the fuck they want to do. But very few women actually want to be engineers. And I think that's okay. As long as there's equal access, and a woman who does want to be an engineer can make that happen, has the same chance as a man, I think that's what matters. And we already have that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I would say that in regards to your point about there being like poverty and other things which have active policy which could help change and those kill people, I just don't think that like you don't need to focus on one issue at a time. Generally, politicians run on massive platforms which cover the entire scope of what.
Right, but Callum, the thing is that, as you said yourself, this is not an issue for which legislation can address, with the possible exception of grants and overturning Roe versus Wade. So even if politicians,
I would say like, I mean, if I sat down and I had more time to like, you got to think about like specific policies are not necessarily the most easy thing to come up with off the top of my head. Another one I would say maybe we could address how sex work is illegal and the ways in which there are various policies around that I'm not going to be able to know the ins and outs of.
Well, I agree with you. Legalizing sex work, also a good idea. I'm fully in favor of that. So we would probably agree on like it seems like we agree on like 2 out of 3 of the policy prescriptions, maybe even 3 out of 3. I'm not against more scholarships and grants, although I think it should be based on merit, not on gender or race. But yeah, I do think that smart people, especially who come from poor families, should be given more opportunities in order to get to college for cheaper cost. In fact, I think college in itself should be a little cheaper. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is just like an issue which really cannot be fixed unless you're going to do equal outcomes, where you're going to make mandates where 50% of this firm's company have to be women, where 50% of this college year's class, this engineering school, has to be women. That's you. If you do that, then you can definitely make some waves in this issue. But no one really wants to do that because we all acknowledge how fucked up that would be. So unless you're doing that, unless you're requiring mandates for equal this, equal that, then you're very limited what you can do from a macro perspective. So that, to me, it just kind of becomes a little bit of like mental masturbation then.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so I guess if that's your perspective, then I wouldn't necessarily fully disagree, although I would say that discussing social issues that can't directly be affected by policy isn't just pure, mental masturbation. But what you had said is that the reason you don't, in your TikTok, was that you don't identify as a feminist because of the feeling that it's been hijacked. And yeah. I suppose that I would point you to the larger mass of politicians and people in your life who are feminists and don't espouse like seemingly radical opinions, and I feel as though people look too often to whatever it would be, Twitter or someone who's got a microphone on a street, people who are not generally representative of a social movement which profoundly affected North America through the past century and a half, 2 centuries arguably. So I guess it just doesn't make sense to me that you would take these extreme individuals, because again, I'm not saying that women are the most important group to advocate for right now in North America. I don't think that that is the case. Although I think that, like I said, as an intersectional person who views things through that lens, I think that's part of how we would at the policy level even tackle things. But I don't understand why you would take those crazy people and kind of apply that to an entire movement and therefore remove yourself from it.
Well, the same reason I would not identify as Black Lives Matter. Like, I think police reform and police brutality is horrible. I'm fully in favor of getting rid of officers who have prejudice and who abuse their power, especially against minorities, right? But I would never say I'm Black Lives Matter because of what that movement has become nowadays. It's the same thing with feminism.
I would disagree. I think that Black Lives Matter is a tiny, tiny movement in the scope of societal shift when compared to feminism. And I don't think that you can take, especially one which I believe Black Lives Matter is it not tied into like a specific organization? Which
I mean, it's like literally now tied into like communism, and it's just become this whole weird thing that it was not even intended to be.
Well, sort of. There's a whole bunch of chapters. It's a pretty fractured group. Like, there's a lot of chapters. They don't all agree with each other. It's hard to, like, there is a BLM website, but most people like involved in BLM will tell you that like it's a much more fractured movement than the website makes it seem.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to pay some attention
that
to
like
that.
So like first wave feminism compared to like third wave, I mean, it's like pretty different. I'm pretty sure that's probably what Alex might be getting. I don't want to speak for you, Alex, but like the initial, women's suffrage movement, for example, that was a way different thing than what feminism is nowadays. And I think, if it's just about voting rights and all that, then yeah, I'd call myself a feminist, but it's clearly way more than that. Things like, for example, abortion rights, quote unquote, half of Americans are against abortion. And so they can't hop on the feminism train because it's almost like, well, in order for you to be a feminist, a true feminist, you have to be okay with, aborting babies. And half of Americans don't agree with that. So I think it's a very different thing. You're kind of conflating feminism as a whole, first wave with third wave, as if it's the same thing.
Well, I think, social movements as they grow will diversify and are fluid. And I mean, the issues that people were dealing with and women were dealing with in the late 18th and early 19th century are obviously different than the ones we're dealing with now. But in regards to abortion, I just have to say, like, even if you're against abortion, that making it illegal just makes them less safe, right? It doesn't actually change the rate of abortion.
You're opening up a whole can of worms. I debated.
That's true.
You could say the same thing about killing people.
I debated. I agree with you, Callum. But that's a 3-hour debate right there. I debated Kevin on this.
Super fair.
What I would say, Callum, basically, because I don't identify as a feminist and I get a lot of shit for it. And basically what I would say is there's a really big problem with feminism on two folds. Number one, they've done really bad PR. The reality is that rad femmes who scream kill all men are not being strongly ostracized by the broader feminist movement. There's a lot of coping where they're like, yeah, but most feminists aren't like that. And I'm like, yeah, but they are. And I haven't seen any strong movement within major feminist groups of expelling people who say things like that. So there's very little social accountability within the feminist movement. Number two, the problem is that feminism is kind of like chiropractics. They try to pretend like they are a panacea for all of the world's problems, and they're not. They're a panacea for certain problems. They have really valuable critiques. They have very valuable things that they bring to the forefront, but they aren't going to solve all the world's problems. And if you try to hone every problem into the lens of feminism, it tends to lead to a low resolution analysis of the world. The third point that I would say is feminism's like constant pushing that everyone should and must and does identify as a feminist if they were just honest with themselves is like cringy Christians who try to constantly argue that everyone's actually really a Christian in some way. And then they create like weird loopholes how everyone more or less has to be a Christian. And it's just really fucking annoying because it's like, if I'm actively saying no to the label, I'm saying no to the label a lot of times intentionally and with a political means.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really feel like, oh, sorry, I just got something in my throat there. It doesn't feel to me like most of the engagement that I've had with feminism in university has even, like, they don't even discuss people who say kill all men, because again, that's stuff you see on Twitter. That's not stuff that you see in legitimate academic spaces. That's not stuff you generally see at like any kind of municipal provincial or statewide or federal level. That's just something you see in the online space, which if you want to argue that's definitive of a social movement, then I suppose that's valid. That can be your opinion. But, for example, if you're evaluating international political economy through a feminist lens in order to understand how women in third world countries are more affected by, global north, global south exploitation, that's not something that you're not gonna be discussing that idea and then turn around and see some woman saying #KillAllMen and even engage with that point because it's so.
It's typically not as explicit as "kill all men." That you're not going to really see that. It's more like #all men, like all men are rapists. Like that is, it's more shit like that, not like actually kill all men. You're not going to see that. But I guess why do I have to like identify with this movement that I'm like not really passionate about? Like I'm not saying no to the policy prescription ideas. As you saw, I'm in agreement with like 3 out of the 3 things proposed, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 things. But why do I have to take this label? Like I'm not forcing you to take on the label of like manosphere or fucking red pill or I don't know, like what's another one? Like I'm really big on freedom of speech. I'm like, Callum, why do you not identify with the freedom of speech, right? Like why do I have to identify with this movement? Like why is that so important?
I guess I don't necessarily care if anyone applies any specific label to themselves. I suppose it was simply based on that one TikTok. Again, because I don't consume a super large amount of internet content. I tried to like look at some of your stuff, but there was so much of it that was just to do with the dating sphere that I couldn't get a ton of your political opinions. It's always confusing to me when someone agrees generally with a lot of policy prescriptions and lens bases through which feminism operates, but then they take these really ridiculous opinions from a select group of people, and they choose to not identify with the movement because of that. But again, like if that is, how you're going to take it, then that I can.
Well, do you think Judith Butler is an edge of the movement?
I would say generally so. I don't think she's
Butler, really?
Like in the academic space, I've never.
Hold on. Okay, this is a really big academic issue. There's nothing more annoying to me as a fellow academic when academics pretend like any layman has any fucking clue what's going on in academic land. Nobody gives a shit. What really matters is what is publicly available. Like that's what matters. And academics who don't get into the public space, if you're a feminist academic and you're like, this really doesn't represent us, get on Twitter. Fight with those other feminists. Tell them that they're fucking wrong and do a better job of it. Like that would be my argument is like, you guys have this PR optics because this is how you appear. If you want to fix it, figure it out. That's what I'm doing about psychology. If you don't want to, that's fine, but then don't complain about it.
Yeah, I guess I would say this, like once I see feminists, people who identify as feminists condemning all the fucking cringy ass shit about like #all men, #every man's a rapist, all that shit, then maybe I will consider joining the movement. But I haven't seen any of that. In fact, I see it going in the opposite direction. But once I see that, I will definitely reconsider.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose I've literally never had Twitter. I don't find it to be a very serious platform for like intellectual discussion, but I understand that it obviously has a lot of social sway. And I suppose if that's how, maybe I'm taking it.
Well, just
like
take a look at
it has no academic rigor. Okay, Twitter is Satan's asshole. It is garbage. The problem is that the culture war will be won on spaces like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. All of Satan's assholes is the place where most people get their information. So if you want to be a feminist who offsets the optic PR, I think that's based. The reality is just know those are the nasty spaces you have to go into. And part of how you fix it will be fighting your own in-group a lot.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the internet plays out in terms of actual political influence, because it's so new to that sphere, and the influence that it kind of exerts is still, it's yet to be seen how that will play out exactly. But if that is the case, then RIP humanity, because I think that's going to be real bad.
Well, I think
humans are pretty inventive. We'll figure shit out.
I mean, I think if you want to get an idea of how like people like feminists carry themselves, just take a look at my TikTok comments. You'll see a lot of people identify themselves as feminists saying that I'm a rapist, I'm a stalker, my girlfriend lives in my basement, that I have a criminal record, all things that are like completely false, by the way. I'm like squeaky clean, like law-abiding citizen over here. But like all this crazy shit because I'm not willing to call myself a feminist, or because I have like some text game tips. Like it's literally, if you just go through my TikTok comments, you will see the cringiest, craziest motherfuckers, all who call themselves feminists. So yeah, I think that like that's just kind of my issue with that community.
Fair enough.
Ask Cal, is it Callum?
Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question. So
Sure.
To me, you're putting off this vibe like you believe women are just the biggest victims on the planet. And I love women, but objectively that's very wrong. And you know, so what rights do you think men have that women do not in 2022?
I would say for sure, firstly, that women are not the biggest victims. Like in terms of groupings, if we're talking globally or in North America or in any country, pretty much, you know, you might be able to take some edge case like Iran or something specific, or Syria or whatever. But in North America, what rights do women not have that men do? I don't know if there's any super specific ones.
I like how Brad just comes in straw man and Callum right
Like,
from the
what's
beginning.
the argument? Like you're talking about,
and
you're talking about women having it so tough because of this and that, and then when I ask you what rights do they not have, you say nothing. So
Good one. Got him.
we're talking again. I mean, if we're talking about North America, if you want to talk about literally any other country in the world, largely outside of, you know, some places in Europe, then there are a lot more discussions to be had. But I don't think that the plight of any individual group is just going to be strictly based on rights. You know, you can look at, for example, the African American community in the U.S. has a lot of systemic barriers, but I don't think that there are any specific rights which they still don't have, you know, compared to white people.
Well, Callum, I would just say another thing that would make me gain respect for the feminist community is if they actually start calling out all the abuses, like real abuses that happen in Middle Eastern countries. But as far as I understand, the feminist community is largely silent on that because that's considered, oh, their culture is different. So they seem to be really obsessed with this perceived injustice that happens in America, for which there's not even really any clear evidence for, but they completely ignore the elephant in the room that happens in the Middle East and Africa. So that's another thing that I would say is like pretty weird about the feminist community.
I would say that I again, like, I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, but every single feminist lens that I've ever, or every single feminist critique that I've seen that's not specifically centered on North America has engaged with global issues like those and issues that are outside of North America. But again, I'm going to say that, like, generally you're going to see people within a country advocate for issues within that country. It's very rare for that not to be the case outside of, you know, maybe some things at the federal level when you're dealing with international markets and things like that. And, you know, whatever, case in point, Ukraine, but that's to do with NATO, right? That's because of the US's position as the unipolar kind of power in the world. Generally, people advocate for issues within their country. That's just how the world, that's just.
Yeah, but I would just say, like, if the main thing is like women's rights, fairness for women, and you have one country where maybe there's a little bit less women in engineering school, another country where there's female, genital mutilation, and a woman can get fucking beheaded for like fucking going outside without her husband, like, it would just stand to reason that's the place that you want to focus on, not the place where there's like maybe like she can't really like I don't even know what the fuck she can't do in America. She can do whatever the fuck she wants in America.
Yeah, so. What are these issues you're talking about? Like, what issues in Canada and America do women have?
I mean, it's all systematic. It's all systemic, right? Like, I can't believe I have to be fucking fighting for Callum's side because you guys are being so fucking bad faith with him. But like, what Callum said is true.
Not bad faith.
Hold on. Yes, you literally started with a straw man, Brad. I'm sorry. There's no other way around that. But what I would say is, like, Callum has responded to Alex's criticism. People are political about things that influence them personally, right? What am I as a random Canadian schmuck going to do about Iranian politics? I don't know anything about the fucking country. I don't know the dynamics between the genders. I don't know that much about their religion. I don't know anything about their history. And I also don't understand their space in being basically a proxy war Middle Eastern country. I don't understand all of these dynamics. So what the fuck am I going to say about it or do about it, right? What's better for me to advocate for is stuff that affects me that I can put my finger on and say, this is a problem. This is a problem.
I also kind of feel like it's a pretty big Americanism to like look at another country and say, like, we have to advocate for issues within that country and try to solve them. I mean, I obviously care about things going on outside of Canada, but I don't necessarily want my government to go in and like try to vastly manipulate their social order, because we've seen generally how America has done that throughout the past 50, 60 years or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily work that well, because governments don't have altruistic motives.
No, but
I
no
wouldn't.
one's saying that, Cal. I'm not saying that we should, expand the empire and like fucking physically go in there and fucking take over the government of Saudi Arabia and institute like fair rights. I'm just saying, it to me seems like if the main thing, the issue that you're most passionate about is women's rights, women's safety, all of that, then instead of focusing on the country where things are like 99% perfect, focus on the country where literally that shit is super fucked up and a woman can get beheaded for walking around outside of her house without a fucking, male guardian. Like that to me just seems like such a bigger elephant in the room. That's kind of
Yeah, I mean, we know things are different in other countries, but I'm asking, in Canada and the United States, what are these issues you think women are dealing with?
I think that generally they see underrepresentation. I think that the way the sexual dynamics between men and women function often leads to, I don't have a single female friend who hasn't suffered some kind of sexual assault, and I think those are the kinds of social issues that generally are the most important right now. I think that the sexual dynamics between men and women are super dangerous, and I think that we have to find a better way to basically educate people about sex in order for them to not encounter all of these sorts of situations. Because again, I also know that a lot of these situations aren't, women like walking down a dark road and getting pulled in.
Who do you think we need to educate?
Not assault a woman.
Do you think we need to be educating men or women when you're saying education? So when it comes to sexual assault issues, what would you educate men on specifically?
I think that a lot of guys don't understand how consent works and how they might get themselves into a situation wherein they could do something. Like, a lot of guys just don't understand when a woman's going to be uncomfortable. So part of the reason I also disagree with a lot of like pickup artist behavior is because I think that pressuring women and trying to find every possible avenue you can to get a woman into bed is generally the attitude that you're going to have, or the attitude that someone who would potentially commit some sort of sexual assault would have. I think that education around boundaries is really important, and I think that education around how casual sex can be dangerous, especially when you're incorporating alcohol or other drugs.
What would you prescribe for women?
What
would you prescribe for women? I just want to. Sorry, Brad. I just want to finish this. What would you prescribe for women for education?
For women right now, generally, I would prescribe very clear boundary setting. I think that a lot of women are afraid to say no for valid reasons, but I still think that generally a lot of sexual assaults that I've heard of personally come from women who freeze up or they don't say anything. And I think that those are very difficult to navigate exactly how to, I obviously can't transport myself into their body and feel exactly what they're feeling. And I know that there's a lot of kind of different kinds of trauma which can come up. But
you can say it from your chest. Women need to be able to say no. They need to give voice to these things. And if they aren't able to give voice to these things, they should probably be careful about engaging in casual sexual experiences that would put them at highest risk for bad situations.
I would agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
But I just want to push back on this idea because I've heard this argument time and time again. It's a massive straw man. The pickup community is about getting laid at all costs, like pressuring and pushing women into having sex. I've been part of this community for a very long time. I know a lot of people in this community that there's just not the reality. We're not about fucking the girl at all costs. The pickup community is about dealing with various social situations. Maybe the friend comes in, or being able to maybe handle a concern a girl has, or make a girl feel comfortable, build sexual tension. It's not about pressuring the girl into sex. So I have to extremely push back against that because it's just a massive straw man.
And I want to ask too, what is your definition of sexual assault? Because you say you have all these female friends, they've all been sexually assaulted, quote unquote. What is your definition? Because with the far left nowadays, the bar keeps getting lower and lower. I'll give a very quick example. One time I was talking to a woman on my balcony. I guess she was like, I don't know, 21 or something, 22, maybe 25. I don't know. She's like in her 20s. But she said, "Oh, I was sexually assaulted one time." And I said, "Oh, that's terrible. That sucks." She said, "Yeah, I had sex with a guy. He didn't know that I had a beer." So she's talking about, dude, she's saying she had consensual sex with a man, but the man didn't know that she had drank a beer earlier in the night. Therefore, he didn't know he had sexually assaulted her. And this sounds crazy, but with the far left, this is getting so common. Like, So what's your definition of sexual assault, or your friends that have been assaulted?
Unwanted touching, unwanted penetration.
Oh, well,
Basically,
that's pretty clear. I can't argue that.
I mean, I would say those two, both of those are, wrong. One of them is a lot worse than others. Me and my girlfriend were walking around Halloween, and some random dude like ran up, grabbed her ass, and ran away before I could even fucking turn around. Like that would, I guess, technically qualify sexual assault, right? But that's not the same as someone like fucking raping her, right? But I would, when we get to, I do think sexual assault is obviously very wrong. I think that more has to do, that's an issue with, better policing, better, dealing with crimes, and not so much. I don't think I disagree with this idea I see on the left of like this idea of like accidental rape, where like guys are just raping girls without realizing it. Like every single rape story I've heard, and I've heard a lot from female friends, involved the girl saying no multiple times and the guy ignoring the no. I've never heard a story where the guy just like tripped and fell onto her vagina and then they start having sex, and like it's always the girl saying no, 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 and the guy's ignoring the no. It's never like this accidental rape I hear like the left talking about. Just never heard stories of that.
Sorry, just one quick second here.
I do got to get the next person on, but I want to get you let you get like your pointed. Let me just bring on Looks for L, and then we can keep going. Yeah, sorry for keeping you waiting, but let's let Callum finish his point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would finish off by saying sexual assault is obviously a very broad term, which is why it's not necessarily great when you're condemning or condoning a set of behavior, and people will push the boundaries. And I suppose maybe it'd be better if there was multiple categories. I don't know. It just seems. I'm sorry. Actually, I really lost my train of thought there. I was just chatting to my roommate. But you're right. I would say that the category is ill-defined. But I also think that you're wrong in that consent is very clear, and that your hyperbole about a guy tripping and falling into someone who's not consenting is ridiculous. When a lot of sexual assault can happen in situations where a guy, because we're often the ones who are, advancing things, and a lot of communication regarding sexual interactions are nonverbal. I think that there are a significant number of things where that can happen where a woman is coming away feeling as though she was touched on in an unexpected and violating way, and a guy is not going to know that he did that necessarily, or he's only going to know after it's happened, and he would have not done that otherwise.
Okay. Do you think in the vast majority of rape cases the girl is actively saying no to the guy, or do you think she's just kind of laying there not doing anything?
I would say that
almost all rape cases are happening where there's blurry consent, and typically both parties are drunk. That's almost all sexual assault cases, especially in college spaces.
Let's say with
I agree with Erday.
Let's say with the absence. Well, I don't think you should fuck girls who are drunk. So that's like a pretty clear. Like,
what if you're both tipsy?
You're both tipsy.
So
that's
Alex,
when most of it happens.
Let me ask you. Obviously, if a girl's like blackout, wasted, drunk, then don't have sex with her. That's obvious, and I think most men know that. But let me ask you: if you pick up a girl from a bar, you've had 3 or 4 drinks, she's had 3 or 4 drinks, she's obviously coherent, and you have consensual sex. Men and women have been doing this for thousands of years, since the beginning of time, and this idea that men need to be taught if a woman's coherent or not, and what consent is, it's very like demonizing to men, and it's just not true.
How is that demonizing to men?
Because it's saying that men are so dumb or so animalistic that we need to sit them down in a classroom and teach them, oh, if a woman does this, that means she doesn't have, like, men are intelligent. Like,
would you agree that most people who are neurodivergent are men?
Yes.
Or what?
Okay. Would you agree that most men who don't have most men don't have fathers or are fatherless?
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Would you also agree that Hollywood tends to not construe the best role models for masculinity on kind of both ends of the spectrum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are these young men learning blurry conversations around consent? When they're the pursuers, right? This is the issue. I'm going to be honest. If women were the pursuers, we'd probably see in many ways the role reversal where a lot of men were feeling sexually assaulted if they were always initiating. Because as the pursuer, we've got a couple of issues. Number one, Women are really bad at voicing their boundaries, and that's on them. Women need to voice their boundaries. If it's a no, it's a no. For example, I had sexual assault trauma. I knew that I would freeze. So guess what? I didn't engage in casual sex because there's nothing worse than me freezing in the middle of a situation where I don't want sex, right? And he doesn't read it for whatever reason. So that was certain precautions that I took to be careful about myself, right? Men, for example, if they're leading, they need to look for things like, this is why I advocate for men to do things like make a no really, really easy, right? So like there's multiple ways that you would go about doing things, but you want to make sure that you maximize a woman's agency in every single interaction so that her saying no is as easy as possible, right? And then you're going to want to teach, especially neurodivergent young men, what no's look like when they're nonverbal, because most women won't give you verbal no's. They'll give you implied no's, like they'll turn their belly away from you, or they'll start looking in different directions. A lot of guys don't realize what that is. And we also see from EvoSite to some extent that men are always biased to see any positive interaction from women as a positive sexual cue. Because to be honest, if you're a dude, you're always going to be unlucky. You're always going to be looking on the hunt for women. And you're going to be better to assume that her smile means that she does want sex than to miss out on a woman who smiles at you and does actually want sex, right? So like there's all of these things going on that make consent really messy for men. The problem is, you're right. We don't need to be vilifying every single man for it. So we have to somehow hold space for the women who are genuinely scarred and fucked up from it, because they have had consent violated, but also have space for men who genuinely didn't mean to do something wrong. Consent was really blurry and society failed.
Okay. I find this very interesting. So can you turn, hold on one second, Brad. So could you turn, if you try to turn a no to a yes, would that be considered violating consent?
No. It would depend on the situation, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
like if you have a situation, if you're in a situation where you're already at, you've gone back to her or your place, for example, right? And you've asked to have sex, even though obviously that's borderline never going to happen. I mean, maybe it does for some other people, but generally that's not how things are going. Or you've started to make out or whatever, and that's what she asked for, and then or that's what you sort of move towards, and she says she doesn't want to do that. If you then proceed to like slowly try to push, try to say like, okay, fine, keep making out, and like you keep making moves towards her, like her lower half or whatever under her shirt, slowly you could give her the indication that you're not the kind of person who's going to have an easy no. And I know a lot of my friends who've had sex with guys where they wouldn't necessarily say it's sexual assault, but that sort of thing started to happen, and they thought to themselves, well, I don't want to strike at the chance of this guy being violent. It's just going to be, or even not even that. They just don't want the awkwardness. They don't want to deal with anything. They just go along with it because they're like, this is going to be easier. And generally, those aren't the kinds of sexual experiences that I think we should be advocating for.
I agree with you, but we wouldn't call that rape, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, even the way you said it, so you don't call it rape.
Yeah, no, he's saying that's not rape. I do think we need to be careful with that word because it's a very serious thing, and it's a crime for which I think there should be very strict punishments.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't use it then.
I'll just say this.
It's a good thing I didn't use it. I said it's a good thing I didn't use it.
No, right? That's good. Yeah, that's good. But I'll just say this. I mean, this is my, like, if I was, the president, I had all the authority. Whenever there would come up these situations where a woman says, "Oh, this man raped me," we would do a very extremely thorough investigation, make sure we're 100% correct, and one of them's getting the death penalty. Either the man for the rape or the woman for the false accusation.
You're losing it there, Brad. I don't think it should be the death penalty.
I knew it was going to lose people, but I'm strong in this belief because I'm strong in this belief because if you're a man who would even try to rape somebody, you should have death penalty. And if you're a woman so sociopathic that you would make up a lie about a man trying to rape you or raping you, you deserve death penalty. That's my position.
That's just going to discourage people from coming forward with a true story, though, because women generally are already very nervous about coming forward with their stories, and it's so difficult. And it's so difficult to prove any of this stuff empirically, especially if there's been a certain period of time afterwards. So essentially, what you're saying is any woman who couldn't 100% prove her case would be murdered, which is. I mean, you must understand that's a ridiculous.
And the same way with men too. Like men will be like, "Oh, well, I'm not even going to try to talk to this girl. I'm not even going to try to talk to this girl because there's a possibility she'll falsely accuse me of rape and then I'll die."
Yeah, that's a little too extreme. But there should be penalties.
That's a pretty.
But this is why I said though. This is why I said no. So I can kind of see. I can see. I get it. But this is why I said only if it's an extremely thorough investigation and 100% proof. It cannot be even like
no criminal investigation is ever 100%. There's like a human innocence.
That's the problem with sexual assault, like the sexual assault cases. So like in Canada, for example, to be honest, the idea that like police are really dismissive of sexual assault, that might be true in certain precincts of the States. I don't really know, but Canada's actually really quite good in how they respond to sexual assault. Here's the issue. My friend actually works as an intervener for sexual assault victims and the police. And she has to sit down with victims and be like, look, this is the evidence we have. This is what we don't have. The reality is that this is going to be an extremely difficult case to actually go to court and land in a certain decision. And even if he gets charged, he'll probably in Canada only get like up to 7 years. And you're going to have to stand on trial and have a defense lawyer tear you up one side and down the other. So most women, for tons of reasons, don't go forward with it because the evidence is terrible. It's actually really hard to find evidence. It's almost exclusively he said, she said. Even if there's DNA inside her, if they're both drunk, you could argue that maybe she did give consent. Maybe it looked like she was saying yes. And here's the issue. That could literally be true. And he literally could think that he didn't sexually assault her. And she literally could also feel that she was sexually assaulted. The problem is that like both of these things can be true at the same time. This is the messiness with sexual assault.
I agree with that. I mean, I think you also have to look for things like patterns. Like, okay, if this is the woman's 5th time saying guy raped her for which there's no evidence, like you have to look for like, you know, does the woman have a history of fraud, right? Like stuff like that. I mean, I don't think like we should automatically, like if the woman's case looks weak, be hitting her with a charge. But if there's a history of a woman, you know, filing false claims, especially with something as serious as that, there should be some kind of penalty, although I don't think it should be death. But yeah,
or like perjury or something like that, because like there are cases of people coming forward with false allegations, blah blah blah. But I think perjury kind of covers that a little bit. We would maybe need to adjust it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe something a little bit more serious. I mean,
perjury is mostly a fine. So
this is like the one blue pill position I have. I do think in the red pill they talk about how like, oh, rape is overblown, and like most of the times like, well, I actually think it's the opposite. I think rape is underreported. I have just so many female friends or girls I used to hook up with who I know have been raped who did not report it. So I'm a firm believer that rape is underreported. But I agree with you; it's difficult from a legal perspective.
I will say this: I do think education could be good for both sides. Because a guy who's actually really good for this, even though he gets a lot of hate for some reason, but he's like one of the nicest people I ever met, is Owen Cook. He actually, in his content nowadays, he'll actually tell guys like in this day and age, in this social climate, pursuing women can be risky if you accidentally pursue the wrong woman. So there are certain like signs you can pick up on, red flags, certain things you could say and do to like minimize risk. And
I have a video on that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think I know which one you're talking about. But at the end of the day, man, like, yeah, getting laid is nice, but it's not really that important. Like, if a girl's giving you red flags, like, it's not worth a false accusation. So
no, I agree with you. Yeah, if you got a really weird gut. Yeah, if you got this like really strong gut feeling that something is off, I personally don't fuck with like super ratchet girls. I don't care how hot they are. Like there's too many things that could happen with that. But
it's not even false accusations. But like, let's say you mess with a super ratchet girl, she could have some like gangbanger boyfriend she's cheating on that she never told you about. There could be all kinds of things, man. So like, I mean, yeah,
It's going to be pretty rare. I don't think you're going to have to really.
It might be rare, but I mean, why take the risk?
Bro, in Miami, it's actually not that rare.
Yeah, I don't think it's that rare. But even if it was rare, why take the risk? Is what I'm saying. Because, you know, why? Again, it's
so are you saying that it's good to like just not pursue sex, or I'm
no, of course
confused
not.
exactly?
No. What I'm saying
is, I think he's just saying like don't ignore red flags just to get laid.
What I'm saying is like getting laid's nice, but it's not the end all be all to risk your freedom or your safety or something like that. So yeah, you might have a chance to get laid with this girl that's really good looking, but she's a horrible human being and she could mess up your life in some kind of way. So why not pass on her and get laid with this other woman who's really good looking, but is also a good human being with morals and values, and you get the feeling she's not going to mess up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brad. I would just say the only thing I would add to that is I think the red pill community really overblows how likely false allegations are, and they make it seem like 1 out of 3 girls is going to give you like a false allegation, when the reality is that you're about as likely to get to be convicted of a false rape allegation as you are to be hit by lightning. So like if you actually look at the statistics, it's not false.
I mean, that's just not true.
I mean, I can pull up like a whole bunch of statistics, but
I mean, if you're looking
fun.
at like what the CDC reports versus like what the FBI is talking about, like
I'm going off the FBI,
yeah. Because like with the CDC, they could say that certain sexual assault could be, what would it be, like blurry lines with consent, like drinking, for example, which like
I'm just going off how
does.
likely are you to get convicted of false rape allegation, and if you look at the FBI statistics on that, it's like really unlikely. It's like you're about as likely as getting hit by lightning to get convicted of false rape.
So Alex,
not accused, convicted.
But being accused as
but
a
that
man,
can already
being
ruin your
accused can
life.
do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that could do like just as much damage, I would argue.
Look at Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Well, no, hang on. Being convicted is significantly worse because you're going to go to jail as a sexual assault person. That means you're going to get ironically raped by all the dudes in jail, and you're going to get killed. So they're not even comparable. Like,
right, but your whole reputation, the way people perceive you, like people to this day probably still just hate Johnny Depp. They haven't watched the trial or anything.
Dude, have you seen all the chicks outside of the fucking courtroom like hollering at him and saying, "Johnny, please fuck me"? Like,
he's a celebrity.
Yeah,
the issue is if you make sexual assault harder to come forward with, it's already vastly underreported. We already have repeat offenders that are out loose, still doing what they do, and there's very little that we can do about it. So like the offset is like false allegations are horrific. And I think actually the better way to manage it rather than at a law level would be at a social level, right? So if somebody makes an allegation on Twitter, maybe don't let it go viral. Maybe be like, hold on, if this is true, please go to the police. Please get off Twitter. Twitter should probably moderate that a little bit too and like just send these reports to the police and then shut down the conversation, right? Because the trial by media is what typically ruins the men's life. But we don't want to make it harder for women to come forward to police specifically.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it should be harder for women to come forward. If anything, it should be easier for her to come forward, but without actually like, guilty until proven innocent type of thing.
Right. And that's like how it is right now in the media. It's always like believe all women, and demonize the men. Because
but you've got to recognize that comes from the history of underreporting and the fact that like even if you think that false allegations are more common than the FBI or CDC would report, you must recognize that the rate of actual sexual assault to false allegation is like
right. I understand that, but this is like such a big crime that someone would be accusing you of that you have to be really careful about what you talk about this subject. It's not just
I do think there's a big difference between the criminal justice system and the media. The media, 100%. As soon as someone makes an accusation, that person is guilty. And I think, like that, there needs to be something done about that. Like me personally on this channel, I'm very, very careful about making claims about any YouTuber unless it's like they've been convicted of that. With the whole Andrew Tate thing, I never once said he's a human trafficker or anything like that, again, because he wasn't convicted of it. He wasn't even charged with a crime, right? But you have like YouTubers like H3 just saying, yeah, he's a human trafficker, right? Like that to me is insane that like, some media people can basically make a claim without someone even being charged with the crime just because there was an incident.
Well, men should be held to the same standard as well. Like H3 is a horrible human being because he's knowingly spreading a narrative that he knows is false, And I want to give an example. I want to give an example real quick. So I know there's a lot of great women, but there's also some women that are not so great. And I was watching a video one night, going through YouTube, and there was this woman who did a false accusation against a man, rape accusation. And the man was like, if he had been convicted guilty, he would have got like 5 or 10 years in prison or something like that. And the woman basically at some point in the trial admitted that she made it up for whatever reason. So they said the man was innocent. They gave the woman like 2 months of house arrest. And not only that, but the woman's family, when they talked to the news, they were like, yeah, she's a good person. She was probably just like stressed out and blah, blah, blah. So like socially, they're making tons of excuses for her they would never make for a man. And legally, they're giving her a huge slap on the wrist they would never give to a man. What kind of bullshit is that? You make up a false accusation and a person's facing like 10 years in prison, and then you get like 2 months of house arrest. So again,
I would agree with you in that specific case. Something went wrong. Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with you on that.
What do you mean they were doing something that they wouldn't do to a man? Like, is there an example of a man who falsely accused someone of rape and then got a slap on the, like, why would a man who's falsely accusing not get the same punishment? I don't understand that.
No, I'm just I mean, first of all, how often does a man false, like, that doesn't even happen? But
Right.
but
in
why
the gay
does that?
community, it definitely might happen, right?
oh, okay,
Between
well, I was
a gay
thinking like
partner.
men and women, but just
Are you saying you're saying her punishment was less than that of a man who would have committed?
I think what he's saying is,
no, I'm just saying in general, men get the book thrown at them a lot more. Like
Always
even
in
look
every
at,
part of the civil courts, in every part of crime. But that's because men do most of the crime.
Even look at the Johnny Depp and the Amber Heard. I guess she has to pay a lot of money or something. But if it was reversed, fuck paying money, Johnny Depp would be in prison. Did you see everything she did to him? She like,
it was terrible.
Bro, she could have broke his nose, broke his face, killed him. Like, this is crazy. And that's the side thing. But my point is, the legal system goes way easier on women, and the society goes way easier. If a man had made those false accusations, would they be saying about him, he's a really good guy, he's probably just stressed out, he's going through a lot?
I agree with you. I agree with you, Brad. I agree with both of the points.
Was it society that said? You said his family, or her family said that, and I feel like families are generally.
The news is going along with it too, bro. This is what I'm saying is, it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people. It's first her family says it, and then the news, when they were reporting the story, they're like, well, I really hope that's true, that she just had a lot on her plate. I know people get stressed out, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think what Brad is saying, the news should not be making excuses for her and should be saying, "Whoa, that is really fucked up. No excuse for that kind of behavior. No excuse."
And look, earlier I realize I can be an extreme guy sometimes. There's times there's certain issues I am more nuanced on, and then there's certain issues I'm very black and white. There's certain issues I'm more moderate. There's certain issues I'm more extreme. I'm very self-aware. I realize this. I realized earlier, I knew before I even said it, I was going to lose everybody with the death penalty. But check this out. Okay, let's say that's too extreme. Let's throw that away. But if somebody makes a false accusation, should they not get the same amount of time that person was facing? If that person was facing 10 years in prison and she's a liar trying to put him 10 years in prison and she gets caught, should she not get the 10 years in prison? Or is 2 months of house arrest enough?
I mean, I think that probably the answer is somewhere in between. I think she should have more skin in the game. Should she be punished as much? I don't know. I mean, we're talking about criminal justice reform, which is a very tricky issue. But I do want to redirect, because the whole chat is saying, please, for the love of God, move on. You've covered this to death. So I want to move on to what Callum, unless you have any last words, and you're welcome to stay on while we get into the third part of the debate. But Looks for L want to debate Erudite about something completely different. You guys can all stay on, by the way. But
yeah, I'll stick around, but I'm probably going to dip out soon.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you.
Do you want to fight Looks for L? I think you would enjoy it more than I would. I've already debated Looks for L.
What's he going to debate on?
It's going to be.
What do you think,
just prepare for your brain to smooth. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I've got too many ridges anyway. I could lose a couple.
Okay.
I just want to mention, being condescending and insufferable is not a cool trait. You doing this doesn't make you cool.
I'm so glad that you specifically are giving me charisma tips. Great.
Right. And again, assuming I have no charisma, the social awareness is unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But as the whole chat has known that you're
can I really quickly finish my sentence? I was just saying thank you, Callum, for being respectful and having a good faith discussion. You are, even though you identify as a feminist, you didn't yell at me or accuse me of being a rapist, and that earns you points in my book. So you're welcome anytime you want to come on my channel, have a discussion, debate. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I definitely I mean, the long form discussion is vastly superior to TikToks, and I'm not looking to consume a ton of your content because I'm not, I don't know, try to stay off of social media to a large degree, but you're obviously in person much, your perspective I can understand much more.
I've heard that from a lot of people on TikTok. They're like, dude, I thought you were a piece of shit on TikTok, and then I talked to you and you actually seem not that bad. Yeah, that's a common thing I hear. But I agree with you. Long form discussions are always better. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that part, like just acting in good faith. So
I
yeah,
was so good faith with you last time, and it was
yeah,
a
just because
nightmare,
you don't
but-
disagree with me, it doesn't mean like it's cool to be condescending. Anyway,
that's fair. I will gladly condescend to you from my chest. Okay, I will
Okay.
own it. I can be
Anyway.
aggressive instead of passive aggressive, though, if you prefer.
Okay, so Alex, one thing I wanted to mention is you know that huge asshole guy that you've been bringing on recently?
Who?
Huge asshole. He's been on the speed dates.
Who are you talking about?
He's like the guy that you were saying he could be a coach, like an up and coming coach or something, like
Are
joking.
you talking about the 19-year-old guy?
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, like, what a coincidence it is that like a good looking guy such as himself has the best game out of like anyone you've ever brought on the panel. Just like some food for thought there. Secondly, I think most people.
Well, let me quickly respond to that.
Okay.
I think there's been better looking guys on the channel. There's that dude from fucking Switzerland or whatever. He's like literally a giga chat. The 19-year-old guy, the Hugh guy, I would rate him like a 7-ish or something like that. We've had guys on who are like, again, no homo, or like 9s and shit, and they perform significantly worse. So I think in addition to that guy,
what? Where are these 9s? There's no 9s. That one other guy who was a Chad received a good fucking response from the woman. He was like,
you can go through my clips and you can find it. It's the guy who's like from Europe and he has that like really thick accent. He's like, okay, my lady, I will tell you. He has like kind of like very European accent.
Okay, you'll have to show me, but as far as I've seen, I haven't seen any of that caliber. But anyway, what I want to talk about is how nowadays, like, most people meet online. So for you to say like online is not real life is just disingenuous. Most people are at home with the Corona scare and stuff. They're still not going out as much.
Really? I think most people don't give a shit about that.
Oh, is that what I've said? Is that what I've said?
No. I'm just pointing out that it's not like as easy as a lot of
What
people
have I
think.
actually said about this?
Well, first of all, you deny the importance of looks, which is just ridiculous. Like, you think it's important, but not nearly as important.
Once you get Gallop, can we get back to my question? What have I actually said about this?
Okay. I don't exactly recall, so could you remind me?
Okay, great. Well, at least we get to avoid you just like creating a version.
Yeah, here we go. Go on a monologue, please. Like, just tell me.
So what I've said is that the studies when it comes to hypergamy from OkCupid and other dating apps doesn't map onto general life like date selection, because women on dating apps are motivated to select exclusively through looks, while as IRL, women seem to select for multiple other factors.
But we're
But
going
IRL
towards
dating
society.
is dying though. Like,
Yeah, it's dying like at an
That's-
exponential rate. I think
Yeah.
like the stats on it now are about 50 to 60% of people meeting online now. So like this is becoming real life. You can't just chalk it up to be like some extra thing in our society.
It doesn't change the fact that it doesn't map on well, and it is causing women to select partners on things that they don't seem to care about. And a lot of women are opting for IRL relationships instead, because dating apps are not very fruitful.
Well, like what Angry was saying, they're probably not fruitful because these high like desired men don't want to settle with these women because they have so many options. So look, of course, if like a Chad pumps and dumps some girl, she's gonna feel a certain type of way and like despise dating because these guys don't want to settle long term.
Yeah, so because women are
the problem
selecting,
is that there's like an incongruity, and that women have not been taught to readjust their expectations between what they can achieve in one night stands and LTRs.
Well, I actually think looks for L. I saw you. I believe this is you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Say in the chat, what are you talking about? Dating apps are literally perfect for women. Is that correct? That was you.
I don't recall, but I mean, yeah, it's like living
Dating
life
apps
on easy
aren't
mode.
perfect for women. I would
Okay,
say
so-
Instagram is probably more ideal.
So
why are women leaving dating apps?
So yeah, I've heard a lot of Blackpillers make this argument. It comes from like a lack of, I'm not trying to be condescending, but lack of understanding of how women operate and what women want. Vast majority of women actually fucking hate dating apps, and that's because most women are not trying to just fuck as many guys as possible. That's very rare. Most women are looking to be something in a semi-relationship with a cool guy that they vibe with. Here's the things that girls don't like about dating apps. Number one, a lot of dudes and a lot of people don't really, either don't look like their photos or their personality doesn't match their texting, right? Number two, it just feels a little weird for a lot of girls to meet a guy on a dating app. They prefer to meet the guy like in a more conventional way. Number three, I think that also there's the potential safety risk, whether it's real or imaginary. A lot of girls are worried about, having a bad experience. So yeah, I think vast majority of girls, if polled, if given the option between meeting a guy at a bar and on a dating app, would pick the bar. I
They
think
choose Instagram, Alex. That would be their preferred method.
I think
That's not
overwhelmingly,
true, man.
I think overwhelmingly, women would prefer to meet a guy in real life over online. Overwhelmingly, like over 90%.
I don't think that's true with the amount of indoctrination women have been fed about, men being predatory, on college campuses. There's a surplus of women. It's just social media kind of gives them the best of both worlds because they can select the chads, but there's also like more of a safety net there.
Okay, Angry, do you have a lot of like female friends or interaction with girls out of curiosity?
That's a non sequitur, man. Like,
I'm just curious because every single one of my female friends would rather doesn't like dating apps and has used them, but would rather meet a girl in real life. Like
I agree with you that women don't like dating apps. I agree. Yeah, they prefer Instagram.
Also, I'm saying they don't want to meet on a social. They want to meet someone in real life and experience that first chemistry off of like.
Yep.
I don't know a single one of my friends who's like, ooh, I want a bunch of dudes to slide in my DMs so I can pick and choose. Like that's never.
No, they don't want dudes to slide in their DMs. They do the sliding, if you will.
No, typically girls hate going first. They want the guy to approach them. So no, it's pretty rare that.
Yeah, but they make like subtle, like kind of cues, like they drop the handkerchief or.
Okay, Angry. If we poll 100 random girls on the street, what percentage of those girls would say they prefer for a guy to meet on Instagram, and what percentage would say they prefer to meet in real life?
What age bracket?
Let's say any age bracket, yeah.
18 to 45.
I don't know.
Okay, well, I've asked this question.
That's okay. That's okay if you don't know.
Okay. I think I have a pretty good basis for this because, I do podcasts with a lot of girls. I meet a lot of girls. And I'm telling you very honestly that over 90% of girls that I've talked to would prefer to meet a guy in real life.
They may desire these things, like just how like they desire to have a nice guy, but end up sticking with the chad that like treats them like shit, and then their friends tell them to leave, but they don't end up leaving. So
some women definitely do this, right? And it's usually like a really toxic behavior where oftentimes women are in these like repeated cycles of like chasing men who treat them like shit and don't want them.
And I wonder why
it's really tragic. Oh, hold on. The issue is most women aren't actually bad, right? That like, unless you're going to basically try to tell me that like most women are in these like weird imbalanced relationships, like 80% of women are in these imbalanced relationships.
No, I'm just pointing out that like girls may say they want like a nice guy or whatever, but they'll go after the guy. Like I don't want to make like huge generalizations, but I'd say most women want to have an attractive tall guy. Some of them will treat them poorly, and they'll still choose to stay them because of his looks.
I just don't think that maps on to reality. Like I think there are some girls, especially like holy shit, internet girls, right? Like internet girls are like the classic version of this. But most girls are just like normal people who like break up with guys when they start treating them like shit. Sometimes they stick around for too long, but it's not because he's a tall alpha chad and she wants to have his genes in her. It's typically because like she doesn't know how to stand up for herself and is really bad at having boundaries and doesn't realize that she can ask for more in relationships. Most women are these types of women. They're nice, tend to be submissive, lacking boundaries, and tend to give a lot more in their relationships than they receive back. And they don't really know how to navigate that. That's most women. The issue is that you've probably spent a lot of time with like internet women who are like just a whole different species of creature.
Well, looks for I hear the point you're trying to make that sometimes women say one thing and they want another, like the whole nice guy thing.
Very oftentimes that's the case.
Right. And I will grant you that happens with certain things. This is not one of them. I'll give you a different piece of data, a different way of looking at it. In the pickup community, there's a very common saying, and that's like, oh yeah, like a cold approach number is worth a lot more than an online or Tinder number, right? And this is something I've observed. So yes, if I approach a girl in real life, I have a much higher chance of seeing her on a date than if I meet her on Tinder, right? Why is that? Right. Well, that to me suggests that again, girls, are more interested in meeting guys in real life because she has a sense of your personality. She knows.
Can I butt in for a sec?
It feels more organic, right? So I think there's a lot of reasons why a girl would prefer to meet a guy in real life over online.
Yeah. Plus, I want to make a point real quick. If let's say you meet a girl in real life, and you're able to actually like take it all the way and like have really good sex with her that night, that's gonna do way more.
Yeah, I agree.
Sliding into her DM.
But the reason why I think it's more practical is because online you're kind of put in a stack with a ton of other men, right? But when you approach her in real life, you don't have this kind of competition like looming over you, where she can just like miss your message or something. Like if you see her in real life, of course the conversion rate like will be higher.
No, you're just wrong. I'm sorry, you're just wrong. The problem with dating apps is that they don't give women what they actually select for partners. They basically give women looks. Women don't select for partners on that. Physical appearance is never enough to make a relationship work, particularly for women. They're typically looking for markers of success and stability. So they want to know that you've got a job, that you clean your butt, that you have a basic level of aesthetic, that you can carry on a decent conversation, and that you're going to treat her decently well and provide for her. That's the metric she's looking for. But when you look on Tinder, there isn't things like average income, do you have a 2-parent household? Are you decently emotionally regulated? Which is what women are looking for. Looks are a prerequisite. They definitely matter. The issue is that dating apps only give women looks. So unsurprisingly, they're deeply dissatisfied. You're right. They have all the sexual options on the planet, and they're still not taking them because women don't want to just fuck around. A lot of them are looking for a more serious relationship.
Also, even if you're looking at what women select for on dating apps, like I've actually had it when I was on Tinder and when me and my friends were kind of like more on that, I would like watch my female friends go on there and whatever, like swipe around. And generally they would have so many different random criteria that would knock a guy off that would have completely nothing to do with looks. Like it'd be like, oh, he's got a big truck picture or whatever. Like,
yeah, they
one of my
want to
friends
have.
would even joke about her having like her taste is in guys' charity work. And she would literally look at like certain guys and be like, oh, he's too pretty or whatever. Like there's a significant number of things that are besides looks that they care about, even just on a dating app itself, right? So it doesn't really
Well, I would say women care about looks and personality and charisma, blah, blah. Personality, charisma, game, it's all kind of like rolled into one. So on a dating app, the girl can see your looks, although you could be catfishing her, and that's something a lot of girls are concerned about. If I had $1 for every time a girl was like, oh, can you send me a selfie? I've been catfished in the past, right? But at the same token, she cannot really see your personality. Even with texting, she can only get so much. That's why if you jump on a phone call with her, you have a much higher chance of meeting up with her because she gets a little sample of your personality. But all of that is inferior to you actually having a face-to-face conversation with a girl who can see your body language, right? And again, this is coming from someone
and your dog
who loves online dating apps.
Can't forget the face app that Alex likes to do in all of his photos, but looks aren't that important, right? So,
well, no, I'm not saying they're not important. I think looks are important, but I think there's also you Blackpillers. You guys focus really on the looks. You ignore the other side of the coin, which is again your game, charisma, personality.
Okay, and by game you mean like having social skills.
How many women do you think are going to stay with you because you're super hot?
Well, we have to. First of all,
depends on the discrepancy.
Yeah.
Well, let's assume that she's
very likely. Yeah.
She's an average girl, so she's like a 6, and the guy she's dating looks like the picture looks for Elle is using.
Yeah.
Right. She'll probably stay.
Yeah, she'll stay. Yeah.
Really? You think that she'll stay?
I mean, yeah, they will.
No,
but also
women are divorcing men, you stupid fucks. 80% of divorces are initiated by women. Women are leaving men. Women are leaving men. Looks aren't enough, loser. Think about it. Use your brain.
Let's keep it respectful, Kyla.
Not a shot. Not a shot. These looks for Elle is unironically the smoothest brained motherfucker I've ever talked to.
Right.
And Brad is laying there like a fucking giga chad, just being like, yeah.
I just like shit talking back and forth. I'm not taking a side, but it's like,
I know you're not. You're just laying back being like, this is entertaining.
Yeah. I have a question for looks for Elle. How much, like, what percent would you give looks in the equation for a man?
At least 80-90%.
I would say closer to 60 to 70 in all fairness.
That's insane.
I think it's 20% maximum.
Well,
I think like 70.
I think you could make a potential argument for 60. I think 70 is too much. I think 90 is absurd. Yeah.
On dating apps, it's 90 though.
Yeah,
I would give it 20% maximum, and I always use this example.
Oh my god!
I would disagree with that too.
I always use this example. You could probably think of a guy you knew in your life at some point. Maybe you knew him or you knew of him. You could think of a guy that wasn't the best looking, maybe even kind of ugly, but he just had game like a motherfucker, charisma like a motherfucker, confidence.
Bro, it's
and
just
he would shoot a lot of shots.
I know
it's just right place at the right time. Luck.
No, dude.
Okay.
No, it's not.
I have a question for you guys because one thing I will give you.
Sorry. Hold on. Can I finish real quick?
Yeah.
You could probably think of that. You can't think of a guy who was shy, awkward, socially retarded, no game. Oh, but he looked like a supermodel, and girls were just jumping on him.
You can though.
Who do you think is going to be
Okay,
more
who is this,
successful?
bro?
A guy who's a 10 out of a 10 or a guy who has impeccable game? He's funny. He can get her to laugh. He's a great banterer. He keeps up conversation really well. He's entertaining. He's interesting. Who do you think is going to be doing better with women? And let's assume the game guy's like an 8 out of 10. So he's still a good looking guy. He's not ugly. Who's doing better?
Doing better at accruing lays or what criteria?
Anything in terms of being
Success
able to,
with women.
yeah,
relationship
caliber.
quality, or I don't know.
both in getting laid, getting into relationships. Like, I don't know, take someone.
Let's do getting laid first. Let's
Is it
do
a
getting laid
linear
first.
8 out of 10 erudite? Because a linear 8 out of 10 is unimpressive to women. Just being in the 80th percentile of attractiveness, not that impressive. You're not going to make her wet in a vacuum. So yeah,
Okay.
I would say for getting laid, 10 out of 10, most likely.
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
say
You're just wrong.
I would just say you're wrong on that. Yeah.
If you can sell your confidence to a girl, that's all there is. You can be a decent looking
What the
musician
fuck
with
are you
game
talking
and
about?
no money and a broke ass dude who's not very attractive. And these musicians fucking slay because they've got good game, they're good at social skills, and they can sell their confidence. Like even these really shallow material girls who will say that they just want a hot guy, they're going home with the 6s and the 5s who have impeccable game. This is why I always point to guys like Austin Summers. He's not that attractive, but damn is he fucking funny. He's got excellent game.
Wait, why do you never point to a guy like Alex from Playing with Fire? Like, I'm not that. Well, like, why fucking Austin? You don't have to go that far.
And
All
this,
right, Angry.
this is something I want to say. This is something
Because
a lot of
Alex
guys
has
don't
an
consider.
unfair advantage. He's a giga chad. No, he's not.
It's
Right,
something
yeah.
a lot of
I
guys
wish I
don't
was.
consider.
It's okay.
I
That
hear
hair
a lot of
transplant.
I hear a lot of the black pill guys. They always say like, "What is game? What is game?" And I guess there's a lot of different ways to define it. But when you look at a guy who has really good game, he just knows what to say, when to say it, how to say it, what to do, when to do it, how to do it. There's a famous quote. You can look it up. I forget who it is, but somebody says, I think it's like a famous seducer from like way back in the day. He said, "Give me 10 minutes to talk away my ugly face, and I'll bed the Queen of France." So,
Oh, that sounds familiar. I think I've heard that before. I don't
yeah.
know
I mean, maybe there is a threshold or something if you're literally like a 1 or a 2.
No, I
perhaps.
think there's a little bit of a
But-
threshold. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. But I'm saying, like, for the most part, if you have like fun energy and you know how to be sexual and you know what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and what to do and how to move it forward, that can get you a lot further than you think. Like, you don't need to be, I mean, looks definitely help, like maximize your looks and your game. Why not? But you don't need to be like a male model, bro.
Yeah,
It's
I
not.
agree. All right, let me ask the question like this to Angry and Looks for L. What would you rate me? And if you can be brutally honest, just in terms of looks, I won't get offended.
Angry, should we do like a PSL rating or not?
Yeah, you go first.
What's PSL? Wait, what is PSL?
Okay. Well,
Uh,
I'd rate-
It's like an acronym for some old forums back in the days.
yeah,
Okay.
I would rate you objectively like about like a 5. Like no shot. Like I don't think you're ugly. You're also 6 foot, white guy with blue eyes, so it's not like
Blue
unheard
Russian
of.
eye. Blue
This
Russian.
is
Take
this
the
is
Russian
one,
pill.
wait, is this 1 through 10 or 1 through 8?
1 through 10. I mean, if we're doing 1 through 8, it's gonna be lower. No one's
No,
like
just
really.
keep it 1 through 10 because the 1 through 8
Yeah,
thing is
we'll keep
All
it
right,
at
Angry.
5.
Angry, your turn.
I mean, he has a receding hairline. His jawline's asymmetrical on his nose as
I
well.
don't know. We kind of have the same issues, actually, Alex. Asymmetrical nose, kind of negative
Can't
vector,
think so.
orbital vector. I don't know. I'd rate you like a 5.5 facially,
love
maybe a
that.
6.
Wait, okay,
You're
I'm
in
so
good shape.
curious. Can you guys, I genuinely won't be offended because I don't really care. Could you guys rate me? I'm so curious.
Um,
7.5 in my
Well,
opinion.
no, Angry. This is
I give you
because
somewhere
you
like
see-
solid 7 to 8.
Here's the thing. Like right now, she's wearing makeup. I've also seen her when she's not.
Yeah,
wearing
but
makeup.
most women
Yeah,
are.
yeah, I know. But like, we have to
because of
judge
the
based on like
distribution.
physical appearance at birth, right? You can't just like hide your appearance. Like makeup is not allowed for men, or at least it's not socially accepted. So, yeah, about like a 6, definitely above average.
I'd
but
rate her
nothing
like a
in the
7,
basic
Come on,
category.
that's a cope. We know I'm not like a 9. I would say
No.
I'm also sitting around like 7.5 for sure.
You know-
like I
you
wouldn't
know
put
what,
myself
though?
higher.
With makeup, 7.5 without like a 6, in my opinion.
You know what though? This
It
is
doesn't
really
matter
true.
because
So
you're
this
gonna
is-
have like
this is-
an insane amount of selection from
Yeah,
guys.
dude, there's
This is-
diminishing returns on
But you know
female
what though?
attractiveness.
This is really true. I want to say real quick. This sounds like something maybe like some like soy boy would say because like trying to get laid or something. But this is actually true. This is actually true. A woman could be, let's say, a woman's like a solid 7 only based on her physical appearance, but then you find out she's like has no personality. She's a horrible person. You hate being around her. She'll drop to like a 3. But if she's like has everything on, maybe not a 3, but you get my point. But if she like has good personality, you enjoy being around her, she has a good sense of humor and all that. Yeah, she might only based on physical appearance be a 7, but she could bump up to like an 8 or something. So it's like other shit matters too.
Well, let me just really quickly get back to the point.
Female
True or
female
false?
attractiveness actually isn't that malleable, Brad.
Wait, true or
No,
false?
for,
This
for me
guy's-
personally, it is. Maybe not for you, but I'm just saying, like, I can look at a girl and be like, yeah, she's physically a 7, but then I get to know her. I'm like, okay, her personality is terrible. She's a terrible person. Those are turnoffs. I'm not saying I wouldn't have like maybe I'd still bang her or whatever,
You're
but
still banger.
I would rather fuck the goat with the good personality.
Wait, yo, hold up. I
Me.
want to redirect to this. So, true or false? This guy's significantly better looking than me.
Yes.
true.
Okay, right. I've gone out with this guy. I know him pretty well. I will outcompete him like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's
not
against-
surprised because he could be good looking, but if he doesn't know what to say and what to do,
Right,
it's extremely rare a woman's just gonna walk up to him and seduce him.
right. Well, yeah, exactly. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm a 5 out of 10 allegedly. This guy's
5.5, and then with
You're in
height,
that area.
5.5.
maybe a 6.
This guy is objectively like quite good looking. No homo.
I wouldn't say he's like a Chad, but he's like Chad light territory, like 7.
Okay.
He's
Yeah,
like
right.
a PSL 5.
PSL.
Maybe.
But I've gone out with him and guys like him. I've gone out with really, really good looking
Guys like him. I think the goal is to
Who
get
don't
girls. to
Wait,
like
you think the Dan Specht guy is a 7?
who?
I would
Could
put
you-
him at like a 9. No homo.
He's
No.
way hotter than a 7. I'm sorry, he's
No.
not a 7.
Yeah, no.
Who would
I
you
don't even
rate,
like blonde guys. I don't even like
Who would you
blonde
rate
guys.
Callum, the feminist?
Callum.
Callum. Yeah.
Oh, the guy who was just on.
Yeah,
7-ish.
I don't know his height, and that's
I think
obviously
he
going
was
to
a
be a big part
Chad
of
light
it.
for sure.
He was super handsome. I'd give him like a 7, 7.5.
Yeah, I agree with that
Yeah.
rating. around
The
there.
Dan guy that we saw was like an 8 to 8.5, especially if you're really into blondes. He's getting into the 9s
Who?
for sure.
Oh,
the Dan guy that we
on
just saw.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But why is it that, for example, I will pull more chicks than him?
Well, we're taking your word at face value again.
Just
but
take my word at face value. Just assume
Yeah.
what I'm saying is true.
I'm assuming he has very little social calibration, or he's afraid of like approaching in real life, or he gets nervous or whatever. I'm sure his Tinder dating results, anything dating related, would be like better than your results if he gets professional photography and like all that.
He has really solid photos. He's not like super socially awkward. He's actually a really cool guy, very chill. But yeah, he's a little introverted. He doesn't know what to say to girls. Sometimes girls will approach him within 2 minutes. He'll freeze up, and then I watch this. Like a girl will come up to him, and then within the first 30 seconds, her attraction is here, and then 5 minutes in, her attraction is here, and 10 minutes in, she walks away. I see this time and time again. So yeah, like I
That's
think
definitely not normal though, Alex.
Yeah, that's
He's
it.
an
An outlier scenario.
IRL,
there's-
absolutely.
there's a lot of
absolutely.
good
No,
looking
it's
guys
not.
who have no game.
A
I
game is
think-
if you can sell a girl on your confidence, you're in. And as long as you met the pre requirement for attractiveness and you sell her on your confidence, that's it. And here's the thing, if you get into a relationship with her and it turns out your confidence is not warranted, you're dumped. But if you convince her that you're sick and you can maintain that, she's gonna stay in the relationship. That's just the reality. Like
I'm
women
sorry
want
if
confident
I'm
men.
spurging out,
Yeah.
by the way. I had a few
Just make
drinks
sure-
during that
You are not springing out.
discussion
Andrew.
about feminism.
Yeah.
I was kind of bored.
Just make sure
That's
she
okay.
hasn't.
No,
just
you're
make sure-
you're completely good, angry. I guess the
Yeah.
follow up question I would have, and this is something I find very ironic. Blackpillers find looks to be extremely important. Why is it that Blackpillers never ever show their faces?
I have a few reasons for this.
So do I. Yeah.
I'll go first, and you can say it. So first of all, black pill is not very like politically correct, right? If you have a job or something like that, you can get like canceled for this, especially in like a cancel culture like this. And these are like the two biggest reasons, like by far. Like I'd love to, because myself, like of course I believe in looks because I consider myself an attractive guy. I've seen how women treat people who are short, fat, ugly, and shit. Girls who are like what's the term? They're like offended by like a sub-5 man approaching them. I've spoken with them. They're like, oh, I can't believe he thought his genetics were worthy of me. You know, basically, they may not be honest about this all the time, but on dating apps now, even some of them are saying like 6 foot minimum. At least they're becoming more honest. You know, before they weren't saying stuff like that. They were just.
But what I do is controversial too. Brad, I'm assuming you have a job, right?
But in fairness, I would agree with them. It's way more like I imagine if Lux Pharrell like had like got like released to his employer, that could actually be a really big issue.
It could be
so
very,
like,
very harmful.
Like he said some like pretty like
so the reason
choice words about women. So like
I just don't think it's anything crazier than what Brad said.
I think it's because Blackpillers and specifically incels, I think, were falsely associated with misogyny and terrorism. And I don't represent.
Same thing with pickup artists, bro. Like
no, they're not. I don't
like
represent
incels.
those goals. And
I literally
I don't want to be seen in that light.
Right, but I literally had a few weeks ago a journalist from England reach out to me while she was doing a documentary on incels and she wanted my perspective on it. So she was able to, in her mind, link whatever the fuck I do with incels. So I mean, okay, in terms of incels.
By the way, I haven't said anything too crazy. I just said people should be held accountable for crimes.
No, I don't.
My chat loves you, Brad. My chat is obsessed. They are on the Brad train.
I don't think you said anything like super crazy. I don't think Lux Pharrell has said anything like super crazy either.
Yeah. These are just like logical things to think about.
The point I'm trying to make is like the whole manosphere is fairly controversial. Red pill, blue pill, not blue pill, red pill, black pill, pickup artists, whatever. It's all like fairly controversial.
Well, red pill I'd argue is like really accepted in the media. Like work out, get a haircut, bro. Like confidence.
Bro,
it's gonna take some real ass men to step up. Like I commend what you're doing, Alex. It's gonna take some real ass men to step up because. I'm not even going to say names because then it'll be about the people. But if you see a lot of these so-called men in Hollywood that they know this is all a bunch of bullshit and they still fucking promote it, they sold their soul to the devil. They sold out for money. And God's not going to be happy with them. That's my opinion. So it's going to take real-ass men to step up. So,
I would push back completely that red pill is like super socially accepted. Andrew Tate and Sneeko just literally got deplatformed.
Male self-improvement as a whole is derogated completely by
I mean, look at how many people are in the gym like daily gym maxing. It's like a
but that's what I'm saying. It's like the black pill's whole thing is looks are the only things that matter. Don't you think it's a little ironic that black pillers like never show?
I mean, that's a bit of a straw man. I said 70%. It's not
definitely not. Okay, fine. Let's not put you in the black pill category then.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a mix between like red and black, honestly.
Okay, fair enough. But
I'd say I'm a mix of red and black, but black encompasses the red, like a lot of it.
Yeah,
like
because black pill is just an expansion of red pill with the added layers of
looks Pharrell. If you're saying it's 90% looks, you're not red pill.
Well, I was saying 80 to 90%. I still think having like a game or social skills. And we're going to the gym, grooming. These are like important things, but they're not even close to as important as your looks. And your looks determine a lot of your personality and how people perceive you. They'll give you more respect. They'll treat you better. I mean, these are just things that have been proven.
So how do you explain Austin Summers?
I don't think, well, he's not like a bad looking guy. I don't think he's
but he pulls way above his level. Like, way above. He pulls like 9s and 10s. Like, damn.
Who said?
Huh?
Who said?
You've got videos. You can just watch him do it. He's on YouTube.
I will personally
watch
that. Me and Austin lived in Miami. I hung out with him for a period. I've seen him pull. Yeah, he does really, really well.
There's also some like controversial topics about like JVW, which brings in race and ethnicity.
Yeah, but if he's pulling in the West, I mean, he's not really.
Right.
Yeah, he lives in he lived in Miami. Now he lives in Tampa. Yeah, he's in Florida.
Yeah, I want to say that like being white or Caucasian is like a huge advantage already compared to like being Asian or Indian. On average, like Indians and Asians are much shorter. The bone structure is a lot different.
How would you explain my roommate then? He's bald, he's skinny, fat, he's Indian.
Well, that one girl that you had on.
Yeah, that one girl. Okay, forget about that one girl.
No, you made a YouTube video about it. What are you talking about? It's supposed to be a hot.
There's also countless other girls that he's pulled that you can literally see in the stream. Like while I'm doing the stream, you see him coming the girl back. If you just watch.
What about Destiny? How do you explain Destiny?
They would just say
his wife is so fucking hot. And most of the women he
Play.
sleeps with, he's just like a little garden gnome, and he pulls like actual gorgeous women all the time.
I mean, he's socially
Do you think he'd
calibrated.
be offended if you called him a garden gnome in his presence?
Not at all. Destiny's a girl's
I
name,
think
and he
they
is a
look
garden
cool.
gnome.
Yeah. Well, you have to account for his like pretty high status, I'd say. He's also like a white guy. He's got decent facial structure and everything as well. So you have to take these things into account.
Not really. I mean, to be
But
fair,
you wouldn't put him over
a lot of these
high,
black
would you?
pill justifications. I just want to add this to the conversation. A lot of these justifications are post hoc. So sometimes an ugly guy will pull, and then the black pillar will be like, "Oh no, my original rating was inaccurate. He's closer to a 6 than a 4." So it's like, it sometimes it becomes difficult to explain some of the variance.
This is why I love you, Angry, because you're just honest about things. It's
I'm
so
just
much better
aware of how
interlocuting.
delusional I am. Yeah.
No, you're at least willing to like engage with reality to some extent, which is really a breath of fresh air.
We need to bring to light that some of these sub 5 men have tried like relentlessly and to no avail. Meanwhile, there's like men who are extremely attractive who have like everything served on a plate for them.
But
Being an ugly dude is rough.
No one is denying that being really good looking gives you a massive advantage, and being really, really ugly is a massive disadvantage. But again, I think the problem with the black pill is they really overblow that part of the picture, and they completely either ignore or underplay the other side of the coin, which is, your game, your social skills, and all that stuff. And I think also you guys are just like really incorrect about a lot of your assumptions when it comes to women. And again, I mean this with no offense. I'm not trying to like be condescending, but I think very few black pillars, with the exception of like QB, like potentially are like pulling chicks and actually interacting with girls.
Alex, I've mentioned this before.
Bro, if QB is an ambassador for the black pill, we have a problem.
Yeah, we have a huge problem.
You know what I think I've realized is that it seems to be the case that the more a black pillar puts almost all of the weight on looks, it suggests to me that they're probably actually just a bigger pussy and they have no confidence and they know it. So they're like, well, I've got to Dunning-Kruger my way into justifying my existence somehow. It can't possibly be my game. It's got to be my looks. And it's like, no, motherfucker.
I want to ask Looks 4L, what's your definition of trying relentlessly? You said there's men
like they'll go out and approach, or like because they're not getting any matches on Tinder or Bumble or anything like that. Like it's normal for these guys to get 0 to 1 matches, and so when they go out and approach, these women are like disgusted by them, repulsed, offended that they would approach. But back to what Alex was saying, I told you before my leg count is about 400. I'm 6'3", good bone structure and everything. This stuff is just more interesting for me to talk about.
Your count's 400?
Yeah.
But you have terrible game. Like you have terrible game.
I mean,
you're literally talking to us, trying to debate. You're failing at the debate again, and you're just leaning on your mic.
Why am I black pilled? Because this stuff is
if you have 400 leg count,
no, but it's super interesting to talk about.
Hold on, you're saying you're a good looking guy?
Yeah.
Looks for L. Are you gonna get a ring tattoo once you hit 500?
That stuff is ridiculous. Like,
don't worry, tomorrow he will hit 500 because it's not a real number anyway. So you can magically increase or decrease it whenever you.
No, it was an inside joke about someone.
Well, anyway, I tend to be weary of throwing shade at people, without evidence. Although the claim does seem fairly extravagant. How old are you?
24.
24.
Come on.
How are you mostly meeting women? Like, where most of your
list? It was like 80 to 90% on Tinder.
Hold on, I just don't understand. Like, you seem to have this like black pill, like defeated mindset, but you've been
not defeated. It's not defeated. It's like just more accepting reality and like how women.
Okay, but you consider yourself good looking or bad looking?
Good looking.
Then why do you even care about black? Dude,
interesting. I mean, it's extremely interesting because I know people who have struggled, who are like ethnic or short or like, some other issue relating to their looks. And
did you have like a glow up?
I literally will never believe you unless you show your face. And I don't think you've said something so controversial that you would. Yeah, but Alex could get canceled at any time. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough.
I mean, that's a risk he's taking. He's already mentioned that like he could have his channel banned for some.
There's a 0% chance I would ever believe you that you have a 400 body count or that you're like this attractive as you say.
So when did you start?
I just don't believe you.
I would say the biggest factor is how young you are.
When you were 12?
You're so young.
No, when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
So you started at like 19?
Yeah, like 18, 19, around there.
No shot.
So if you're going to see like 2 a week, it's not even that hard to imagine that.
Alex, I want to tell you real quick.
Show us really quickly your face for like 30 seconds.
No, I can't do that. I told you why. I wish I could.
Here's the thing.
Really
Here's the cowardice. Tons of red pill guys are risking getting canceled every single day,
Alex,
and they
you know
still
what?
cam up.
Here's
So
what
let's
I'll
go,
do. Here's
Giga
what I'll
Chad.
do. Alex, how about like I send you one personally to you, just so you know, because I don't want it to be like advertised or anything, because it can really affect my life and stuff. But I want to make it congruent with like what I'm saying.
What are you planning on sending me?
Just a photo of myself.
How do we know that it's you? It could just be a catfish
God.
photo.
Okay. Well, then I guess we can never believe anyone about
Well,
it.
There's a million ways you could prove this. Could you send a photo with specifically my name, Alex's name, handwritten with like a bunch of like unique factors that you can't just Photoshop in?
Okay, sure. Yeah. I can do that.
I
mean,
honestly,
sure,
hold a
that's
sign.
something.
Hold a sign live. Like do a FaceTime with Alex. Just call him on your phone and FaceTime him.
Alex,
So you guys are live together, but he can hide the phone from everyone. Because even if you add all these editors to the photo, I genuinely don't think I would believe you.
Okay.
Well, what I'm more interested actually in seeing is proof of the claims. Like if you have photos of some girls, of you with girls,
yeah, that's
like
funny. I can do that. As well.
But he can Photoshop all of this. That's the issue.
Of course,
Like
it's all fake. It's all fake.
No,
The guy who's
seriously,
good-looking
dude.
is
You
a
can't be
black
this much of a coward. Red pillars get like literally get canceled and have their lives ruined all the time. And you're just gonna tell me all black pillars, literally none of them have the bravery to cam up? None? Just none of them. And they all happen to also be super yeah, but he's the most fucking sweet, wholesome, nice boy. Like he's just like the least cancelable black pill ever because he's like mostly just a nice guy who's like.
What are you talking about, QB?
Yeah,
oh my god.
He was extremely tame. He like barely said like gross, disgusting things about women. He's just a determinist.
Wait, what? You're talking about Caduceus or QB?
Whatever one was on.
I think you're talking about Caduceus, yeah.
I'm talking about Caduceus.
Yeah, not QB. He's definitely not. I was about to say. But yeah, he was hiding his face for a while too, and eventually he decided to like do a face reveal. That's on him. You know, there's a lot of risks associated with that. Black pill is much more PC than like red pill in my opinion.
Well, listen, Lux Farrell, you can be John Anthony's assistant coach. You know that he's all like if you get canceled, you can get like.
You see how much backlash he's facing, even like yourself over certain topics. Like I don't know, I don't want to subject myself to that kind of risk.
Are you even a famous internet name? Like, what's your channel have?
I'd rather not discuss that. This is why I like to like just discuss these topics without any sort of bias or anything. Just I don't have any reason to lie. I'm just telling you like the way
you have every single reason to lie because you can use yourself as proof of an anomaly. That's why.
An anomaly.
Yes, you can basically prove that the black pill is true. You know this. You're a handsome guy. It's nothing to do with your game. It's just how good looking you are. That completely appeals to your ideology.
Hold on. To be fair,
because we all know you don't have game. Like we've listened to you swallowing your mic for an hour straight.
You got track of your lake count, and it's at exactly 400.
No. It's 385.
Oh, okay. You just rounded.
Yeah, I just rounded it a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry. I lied. You're right. I lied about 15. Sorry. I'm terrible. But yeah,
people lie online all the goddamn time for no reason. I have no reason to lie is the biggest fucking cap I've ever heard. Like literally cam up or face call Alex or I don't believe you.
Call Alex. I think that's actually
demo a cold approach for me, motherfucker. Do a cold approach with me.
Usually I just invite girls straight to the house.
Oh, that could be interesting. Yes,
let's do a cold approach and we'll see.
Let's do a 5-minute speed date. Oh shit, that's how you don't have to cam up.
I was actually like
Alex, here's the thing though. Hold on, Alex. It's good this came up. I actually think the speed dates are not that realistic.
Yeah, they're not realistic at all. You can't build
because I'll admit I did 2 of them. I did pretty terrible. Look, that's on me. But I just got laid last week with a hot ass girl. So like it's clearly not a reflection. Like because okay, put it this way: when you're out approaching girls in real life, it's like you could be ballsy. You could be confident. You could say what you want. And it's like it goes good, it goes bad, whatever. Who cares? Like go talk to more girls. When you're on the speed date and you feel kind of that pressure, like a ton of people are watching you and it's going to be online forever. And
no coping. There's so many guys who come on and kill it.
No, what I'm saying is I don't care if I did good or bad on the speed date. Like who really cares? What I'm saying is I don't think the speed date is like a good I don't think it has
Right.
correlation.
Let me address that. So I've heard that argument many times, and I agree with you.
It's
There's elements
fun.
of
Like,
Just
it's fun.
demo to see if you can do
yeah,
it. I'm
there's
just
elements of-
curious to see if you actually have a practice, because you can tell with a cold approach guy, even if it's stiff and awkward, a guy who's like obviously done a number of cold approaches and been successful with women, and a guy who has not been nearly as successful. You can always tell. I don't believe for a fucking second that this motherfucker has slept with 385 women. There is no shot. It is all cap.
I mean,
all I'm saying is, I'm not saying
Who
you're
even
right.
keeps count after 100? How the fuck do you know the? Do you have a diary where you have like little
Alex,
I
notches?
have notes.
He
I
keeps
have
count after-
descriptions.
No,
of all
I
the
don't.
people.
I don't keep count. But let me address Brad's point. Okay, so yes, there's elements of truth. It's not a perfect overlap. There's some things that are different. However, it is the best tool that we have at the moment, because what I cannot do is walk around with random people, like my subscribers, videotape them talking to girls and analyze it on air, right? So this is the best we have.
What would be really cool though?
Yeah.
I just thought of something. Have a subscriber film them themselves, and then they send it to you. You blur their face. You break it down on your channel.
I've done stuff. I'm pretty sure I've done stuff like that. I could do more of that, but it's not nearly as engaging as the speed dates, because the speed dates were just involves.
Because all I'm saying, for example, let me defend for a minute Charisma King, right? I'll make it quick. I know it's off topic, but people say, "Oh, he didn't do so good in a speed date." I went out with that motherfucker every day for 2 weeks, and he pulled a bad bitch almost every night. But here's why there was a disconnect between his speed date and his game in real life, is because the way I saw him game in real life, he has a certain style that works for him. Obviously, he's getting results. He'll go up to the girl and he'll just do like 90% of the talking for a while until it hooks and the girl's interested in him. And sometimes that takes a few minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer. But on a 5-minute speed date, he tried that style and it was a little bit different. So,
Brad, I understand that, and I agree with you. There'll be some people who do pretty good in real life, but just do average in on the speed date. I don't think Charisma King completely bombed. I think he did slightly below average to average, right? But there's still a pretty good overlap. Like, for example, with me, I think how I perform on speed dates is pretty equal to how I perform when I talk to girls in real life. And it's like that with a lot of people I've seen. So I think if Looks for L goes and he has no game, like zero game, like not just average, like fucking dog shit game, then that kind of negates his claim a little bit. If he does pretty decent, then that supports his claim a little bit.
I just feel like
I've always been saying this.
It's not that hard to just like talk with women. Just have something to talk about.
Let's see.
Let's see it. Let's do 5 minutes.
My whole point is this game thing you guys talk about is really just social skills, like being able to.
Okay, well, show us your social skills.
I mean, everyone can have social skills. It's not directly.
Okay, let's see yours, motherfucker.
I
just explained why, like, I don't want to show my face on camera.
You don't have to cam up. Let's just see if you have any level of social skill.
I mean, my whole like theory is that looks determine a lot of your personality and how the woman perceives you. So of course, what you say is going to be related to like how she.
But to some extent, if you're attractive, people are going to reinforce you and be nice to you, and you're going to develop some level of social skill because you gain more confidence because people are nice to you because you're attractive. This is why you say that people who have good game tend to be more attractive. I fucking already know the answer.
Yeah. All right, Kyla,
try a speed date.
Okay, well let's indulge him a little bit. Kyla, in good faith, can you assume that he looks like his avatar?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, there we go. Problem solved.
So
okay.
You don't believe the lay count though, even though you think I look similar?
I don't actually think you look like that.
Okay.
I'm saying for the sake of the speed date, I will engage with you like you look like that, man.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll give you guys 5 minutes to take yourselves.
No. I'm not gonna do it.
Wait,
I mean, because I don't have my face showing. That's the whole point. Like when you talk to a girl,
watch, I'll blow up this handsome mug right here. Okay.
Homie, I'm here to like debate stuff. Like I don't.
Why can't you show us your social skills? I don't understand.
I already told you I can like just FaceTime you.
What did I fucking say?
So hang on. If you show me your
I'm sorry.
that will prove to me what you look like, but it will not prove to me what your social skills are. That's what we're trying to determine.
I'm saying like the way a woman perceives you a lot is based on like when she sees your face and then you speaking as well. Like she links the two. Like A
Okay.
Chad and a fucking sub 5 could say the same shit, and the Chad will receive good treatment because he's good looking.
Okay, Kyla has agreed in good faith to just assume that you look like your avatar.
But she already has a bias, don't you understand? It's not like fair.
But bro, can you just give it a shot?
Oh me. I don't want to do it. Like what?
Oh my god. This is what blows my mind about Blackpillers. You guys will do the most insane mental gymnastics to get out of like.
I'm not here to like speed date. Like I don't have issues with women. I'm here to discuss black and
right, but your whole evidence is the fact that look at me. I've been with 400 women, right? And
you question the lake count because you said most Blackpillers are like, they don't get any type of
Kyla doesn't believe it at all.
I don't believe you for a second.
I'm kind of 50-50. I'm open to giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Nah.
But
you're quacking like a duck. You're a duck.
But I do want to see your social skills, because if you have dog shit social skills, then I'm not going to believe it. If you have pretty decent social skills, then I might believe it, right? So I think that's really what it comes down to. And so I just don't understand why you are determined to pull a Coach White pill and not show us your social skills.
I just think it's funny where you got the whole I'm kind of an alpha male. I fucking slay 389 bitches on the daily. Like, it's super chill. And then it's like, all right, try out the speed date. It's like,
well, she has like an insane bias. She already doesn't like me for whatever reason.
No.
I have a black pill.
Okay, what if I get a new girl on who doesn't even know who you are?
I mean, I would consider it then.
No shot. He's gonna weasel.
Give me an answer before I
I mean, the whole point is I don't want to engage in this like cringe speed dating shit. I'm here to discuss like black pill.
Yeah, you're way too alpha to engage in the cringe stuff.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, you also have to keep in mind a lot of like
385 baby all day, every day.
Yeah, that's exactly what I sound like.
I was just like remarking on the awkward chuckle. I just thought it was really cute and sweet. That's all.
Well,
I don't want
like, wait, what? We're gonna do a speed date? Like, this is not. I'd not sign up for that. I don't know. It's just like out of the blue. You can't just put someone on the spot like that.
Oh, sure. You could never put a 385 6'3" super hot Giga Chat on the spot. He could never handle such pressure. It's too much for him. It overflows him.
Okay.
I will say, like, I was kind of in the middle, but I will say, in Kyla's point, I feel like a guy who's fucked hundreds of girls is not going to give a shit and is just going to fuck it. He's going to be like, fuck it, YOLO, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
I mean, there's reasons why I don't show my face. You would assume, like, oh, I don't.
We didn't ask you to show your face. We already managed that.
I know, but like,
nice cap.
Things that
nice
you think
cap.
most guys would like show their face. There's reasons for these things why I don't want to do them. It's not just
angry. This is your god. This is your god. Angry.
All right, chill out, Kyle. No, I understand why. Okay, I can understand your argument for not showing your face, right? Which is why I'm not pushing that. I do not understand your argument for 1 second for why you cannot give a quick demo of your social skills. That is, I cannot fathom that.
I mean, just by me like speaking with you guys here, you don't think that I'm socially calibrated enough to like?
Not really. I'll be honest. I'm not trying to be insulting. I think you're a nice guy, but you're very monotone. You don't have any range in your voice. You don't seem like you have any like a sense of humor, right? Like you haven't really made it.
Well, I'm debating. I'm not trying to like get in your pants, Alex.
Oh, that was kind of funny. Okay,
right?
there we go. That was not bad.
I can help the humor if I want, but like that's not the point here,
To be fair, to give to your point, to your credit, yes, a debate is not really the best place to show your social skills, which is why I think the speed date would be a really good way for us to see your social skills. And it's not going to tell us everything, but it'll give us a little bit of a picture.
Right, but Alex, the thing is, I don't want to like prove myself. I don't need to. I know it sounds like a cope in a way, but I really don't like struggle with women. I just wanted to discuss black pill talking points. That's all.
I know, but the problem is a lot of your argument is prefaced on the idea that you're good with women, and
Yeah, but I think a lot of being good with women, quote unquote, is that when she sees you, she has a certain perception of you, and she'll react to you differently, not just based on your voice. Like I'm aware I have like a deep voice, and that helps, which is why I send voice memos over text. I've noticed like girls like react good to that, if you send your voice or have a phone call or whatever. But most of my interactions, like with Lays, it's been through Tinder, Bumble, whatever, online dating. So, you just invite them straight over, a little casual talk, have a drink, whatever. And then it happens. You don't really need to like win them over in a way. They already won once they match with you. You just have to not fuck it up.
I'm not even necessarily gonna like really disagree with what you just said. I do still don't see what that has to do with the speed date. I mean, I'm not gonna like fucking keep pressuring you if you really don't want to do it. But
yeah, I mean, it's strange to like
Well, no, I think it's strange to like be determined not to do it. I can understand your rationale for not showing your face. That seems like.
But I'm telling you, that's congruent with your game, quote unquote. Like the way I see game, it's based on her perception of how you look, and she'll react to what you're saying accordingly. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, bro,
Yeah,
check this out. Check this out.
seems
So,
like-
if there was a girl who had never seen you, has no idea what you look like, and I said, "Hey, this girl wants to have a phone call with you, and if you do good, she'll probably come fuck you." You're basically saying you couldn't do it.
Well, you would need to know some things about her, right? Something to start the convo. It's always like super bland. They're like, "Oh, what do you do for work? What do you do for whatever?" Like, you need to have something to work off of so that you can.
Yeah, you got to know how to generate a conversation from thin air. I agree,
Right.
it's difficult. Like
Well,
sometimes
it's not just that. Like,
fail,
if you know
sometimes
literally
I do
nothing
good,
about
but-
this person, usually, like, when you go into an interaction, you'll know at least something, like something you can comment on, or one of her friends, you know her.
Bro,
she's
if you
gonna
approach
predict
a girl at a bar, but then you're gonna say it's looks. Okay.
Of course, I think it's majority looks, and like the rest is like social skills. But you know, they're gonna clown on me for that.
Yeah,
Even
but
though
I'm
Tinder is,
saying
like,
the
all
better
looks.
your the better your social skills get, the better your game get, the better you'll be at generating a conversation out of thin air with somebody that you don't know.
Well, the better that your face is, the more women you interact with, and the more like you get good with getting good with game.
So you're
Yeah,
saying you're
exactly.
admitting you couldn't do it.
What you just said is the point we're making. If you're that good looking and you've bagged
I
385
could do
women,
it.
you'd get some
I just
level
don't
of
want
game,
to.
and we
I
want to
don't
see
want
your
to.
bag. Okay,
You just don't want to have a conversation
Yeah,
and fuck a
I'm
hot girl. Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
How about this? This is, I think, me being extremely reasonable. What if next time we do a speed dating round, which I think is going to be Sunday, you come on, you can cam up. I will personally have you blurred right after the stream. So only the girl will see your face. No one afterwards will see your face. It is a speed dating stream, so there's no controversy, so you're not going to get canceled. I think that is the most reasonable compromise for you to prove,
Change your name.
But my whole point is I don't need to prove it, man. Don't you get that? Like, why do I need to prove myself?
Well, in a debate, you sort of have to prove your points. Yeah.
Oh, man,
No,
you're blue balling
you're-
erudite with your 385, man. Come on.
Well, Alex was mentioned. The only reason I brought that up is because Alex is like, "Oh, most of these Black pill guys, they get no play, so they don't want to like talking to girls."
I firmly believe that. Yeah.
Why do I have to prove that I am evidence that Black pill does get really good game and does get women because women are attracted? Why do I have to prove my claim?
I mean, it's everywhere. You don't need me to prove it. You can.
Could I just deep throat this mic instead and have you guys just take me seriously?
Okay.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Turn into Amaranth. Become a millionaire.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I will stand by my statement that I think the vast majority of Black pill guys are not getting laid.
I mean, I agree with you. I just think it's like a fun concept to talk about. I don't think my lay count should even be like related to it. But for you to say that is just like not true about me. Or I don't know about angry. But
Well, no, I didn't say that your lay count is false. I said that I'm not convinced, but I'm not saying you're false. I don't know enough about you to claim definitively that you're false. I think the fact that you're really young makes me question it more.
Well, when you're in college, you have a dorm, right? So you can invite girls over. Let's say it's 1 or 2 girls per week, which is not even hard to believe. Then let's say at the end of the year, a year has 365 days, right? So you're getting about like, I don't know, let's say like 100 to 200 per year. So that's 4 years. It's about 400, you know? And I'm a little bit older than that as well. I'm 24. So it's not just 18 to 22. You have like a few more years.
Are these
Well,
girls on the college campus, or where do you actually?
Well, I'm meeting the majority of
live?
them through Tinder. A lot of them are on the college campus, but you just
Okay,
meet them on
yeah.
Tinder, you know?
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, also another factor is I think there's 2 factors. One is I think a guy who's fucked a lot of girls is just going to be like, YOLO, fuck it, yeah, of course I'll do the speed date. There's just like the attitude that I think all my friends who've been with.
Well, your friends probably don't mind. I don't know. I think it's kind of cringe.
I think the second thing is, again, I mean this with no offense because I think you're a nice person, but you just don't carry yourself like a guy who's like crushes it with the ladies. I don't know. I've occasionally been off about these things, but most of the time I'm on. Kyla, just completely take your bias and dislike for looks for L aside. What is your honest assessment as a woman? Do you think he carries himself like a guy who crushes it with the ladies, or what's your honest assessment? And be brutally honest. Don't like.
You're muted, homie.
I think she's talking to her chat.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, here I'm not trying to like win over anyone, Alex. I think it's important to So note that.
Looks for I have a question, or unless
What's up?
unless she wants to talk first.
Go for it, Brad.
Through now? Am I coming through now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Can I ask you like one super quick question and then I'll answer Alex's question? And it's
Sure.
they're tied together. They're tied together for me to answer. Could you by any chance add like a bunch of inflection to your voice for me? So like you know how as I'm talking, my voice goes up and it goes down. Your voice is pretty monotone. Could you just add some inflection for me?
I mean, what would the purpose of that be? I could talk.
I'm just wondering if you can.
We'll go out with some friends. We're gonna get some drinks, like that. Like that's how like.
But your tone's the same. Could you go like up and then back down? And
We're gonna go out with some
voice
friends.
around?
And it's gonna be fun, and then it's gonna be like really fucking awesome.
I mean,
Like,
Yeah.
Really.
Can you do that though?
Yeah, I could.
Can I hear it?
Oh my god. What is like the point of this though? I don't understand.
because it's a social exercise. Because typically guys who can't do the inflection, typically they're not that good socially. Like for example, this is something. If you watch my speed dates, this is the feedback I always give. You're too monotone. You're too monotone, and that's actually Kyla's hitting on something I noticed too.
When I'm interacting with a girl, that kind of just happens naturally, you know? You won't be speaking monotone to her. You'll be like, hey, like, do you want to go get some food? Or like, maybe we can go here. You
Well,
know?
no, I mean, like,
You go up and down though as you're talking. Like I don't know if you notice when you're talking, it's the same tone the whole time. So you notice when I talk, I go like up and back down. You're
Yeah.
you're saying the same. You're just speeding and slowing up your voice, but you're staying the exact same. Could you just alter it a little bit for me?
I think it's just, I'd rather not.
oh my god, dude.
Okay.
Why
I
is
see the
someone-
point,
I knew
dude.
it!
My
I
voice
fucking knew it!
inflection has
Every
nothing to do
challenge.
with my leg count. This is so stupid. This is just
Well,
like a stupid claim.
Let me explain to you one more time because you don't want to do the speed date, right? So we have to dial it back and work with something a little bit less. But inflection is a metric of your social skills. Again, if you watch my speed dates, I always give guys feedback. They're very monotone. If you watch me, when I do these streams, I'm not monotone, right? My inflection is all over the place. But if you watch my earlier YouTube videos in like 2017, when I wasn't as confident, I was a lot more monotone. So generally speaking, when we're not confident, we tend to be more monotone. And when we are more confident, you know, we have more range in our voice. So what she's trying to get at, and what I'm trying to get at too, is to see if you are confident. Again, it's not the best metric. A better metric would be the speed date, and even better metric would be to watch you do cold approach, right? But we have to work with what you're able to give us. So I don't see why this should be an issue at all.
I mean, I already told you I'd go on like a FaceTime call with you or something, you know? Something
right,
like
but that will only show me what you look like, and I will actually. I think I believe you when you say that you're a good-looking guy. I'm just not convinced about your game.
Yeah, well, I would disagree with you there. I think when I'm talking with a girl, you know, it happens naturally. Right now, I'm keeping my voice like low and monotone because I'm trying to have logical arguments here, and I don't know. It's just I don't have inflection like that.
Can you guys hear me yet? Can you guys hear me yet?
Yeah, we can hear. Right,
Yeah.
but
Okay, base. Okay, can I clarify? If you can't add inflection to your voice, you're faking your deep voice because the only reason that you can't add inflection is because you're purposely getting your voice as low as possible. And if you're as low as possible, it's very hard to come back up
I'm
and then
not
go
trying to
back
keep
down.
it low. My voice is just pretty deep,
You just happen to not be able to do voice inflection either.
Okay,
Very
Brad,
interesting.
show the guy how it's done. Show us some inflection in your voice.
I do it all the
I'm
time. when I
offended that
talk.
you didn't ask me, Alex.
Yeah.
Angry does inflection all the time as well.
You
Like
go
I'm doing it
first.
right now.
No.
This is just kind of silly, don't you think, Alex?
All right, angry. Wait, hang on. Angry. Show us some inflection,
Show us some inflection.
There you go.
and then go deep.
Deep.
Dude.
Oh my god.
All right, Brad. Show us some inflection.
I mean, I'm not sure if I'm the best at it either, honestly. Sometimes it's hit or miss for me, but
Just give it a shot.
okay. Let's go to the store right now. Let's go. I don't know if that.
Ace, we got some.
Okay, cool. No, but if you can never do it, that's definitely a problem. I mean, the more you could do it, like obviously the better. But
Yeah, it's very
sometimes
easy for me to
yeah.
do artificially. Hey, what up, guys? We're going to be going. We're
Yeah,
gonna be
the same
talking about
thing.
all this shit.
Hey, like, what up, guys? How you doing?
yeah,
It's the same shit.
Wait. Sorry, do that again. I didn't hear that.
Hey, what up, guys? How you doing? Let's do some shit today. It's the same shit, bro. Also, I think the focus on vocal inflection is like ridiculous. Like, it's almost all about your looks and your height and your social skills.
no.
Well, I
Yeah.
think there's a direct correlation between social skills and how you sound and how you talk. And if you're monotone, that's not attractive to girls.
Dude, vocal tonality is
Well,
important. I
women
wish
prefer
I'd
men
taken,
with like a lower
singing lessons
voice.
from them.
That's why you're on TRT, Alex. Also, like, will help you with everything.
Right, but I was getting laid before I got into TRT.
But you notice how like your tone and your voice was too high to be like more attractive to women. Now that you're on TRT.
No, I mean, I would say that my results with girls were just as good before I got on TRT.
Was that like a jab? The
No,
TRT?
no. I'm just pointing out how like having a deeper voice in general, women prefer that.
Yeah, no, they definitely do, but they don't prefer a monotone voice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You can add inflection. Like I'm talking about something right now. We're gonna go to the store, then we're gonna go here. Like you can add vocal inflection, but in general, women prefer if you have like a deep voice, and it'll come naturally when you're talking to a girl. You'll say, "Hey, let's do that. Hey, let's do that." You know. So I don't know. It's not like a very natural scene. I need to be kind of in the moment for it to happen. But
Brad,
I did a few
Brad,
examples right there.
Take your shirt off. Get him in the mood.
Nah, I'm good.
Anyways, shouldn't we like go
All right.
more towards the discussion of like what
Yeah,
we
we can. Tyler, where you at? What did you think about Looks for L's?
This is not what I expected everything to be about. It's funny.
PWF streams are always full of surprises.
Can we get Mr. Slave on for the last
They
hour?
are entertaining.
That would be funny.
Bro, I can't believe Mr. Slave calls himself an alpha. Bro, this clown world, bro. This clown
Yeah,
world. This
I
clown
mean,
shit.
The real question is, who's more delusional, Mr. Slave or John Anthony? I really can't tell. They're both like so delusional about different things.
But John is very eloquent when he speaks most of the time. He has PowerPoint presentations. This PowerPoint presentations.
Sorry, I'm having like.
Yo, looks for all. Do you like John's graphs?
Yeah, makes me hard.
You know what I find really funny about every time he does a video? My girlfriend's rating goes down. So she started off initially as like a 7.5. Then when we started our fight, she became a 5, and then she went down to a 4. Now she's a 3. I think in like a few weeks she's going to be like a -2. It's like every video she just goes down by a point.
That's funny.
All right, let's I mean, there's a whole bunch of people in the waiting backstage. I do want to wrap up soon, but let me just like add them real quick and we can just do like a fucking rapid fire. Yeah, I'm sorry for keeping you guys waiting for so long.
It's all good, man. No problem. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, great.
Yeah, we can just go like really quickly. I do want to wrap up in like maybe 15 minutes, but Kyla, are you good on audio?
Well, I do want to say that I do think that Looks for L does have a point in terms of social game being tied to your physical characteristics. I think that the more attractive someone is the more likely they'll be able to say something kind of basic and still get a certain level of attraction.
The best thing I have to say about that is like someone being determined as creepy or outgoing would be purely based on your looks. You could say like, "Hey, what's up?" And some girl will be like, "Ew, like get away from me." Versus like the treatment the Chad gets, it's like, "Oh, hey," like smiles, like good body language, everything.
I would say there's definitely some correlation, but I would say like using myself, I would say I have similar social market value that I did when I was 18, 19. I have more muscles now and less hair, right? I went up a little bit, but it's not significant. But my results when I was 18, 19 were atrocious, even 20, 21. I was striking out left and right. Versus now my results are significantly better. Like my looks didn't drastically change, but my social skills drastically changed. So I would also reference my business partner, Indian P. He didn't lose his virginity until he was 26. Even worse, right? He's like a fucking skinny, fat, bald Indian guy, right? He was striking out really bad. Now he's actually having some success. So yeah, I would say that there's a correlation. Sure, if you're a good-looking guy, yeah, more girls are going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think it's nearly as much as the Blackpillers make it out to be.
It's not just like the benefit of the doubt.
To make a good point about Indian P real quick, he did. I believe it's mostly his game. I'm not making but he did like looks max himself. And I feel like a lot of these black pill guys don't looks max themselves.
Yeah, he definitely looks max himself for sure, 100%. Yeah.
All right. I had a question for looks, tying back to the aesthetics topic. That's cool.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this back up because I think it's important in a discussion of genetic determinism. because a lot of black pillars, and to you to some extent, place looks as like genetics. So you're analyzing a guy's canthal tilt, his gunyon angle, like crazy things that no one ever interprets in their entire life.
Well,
But I think that
hold on. Bilateral symmetry is the most important.
Right.
Yeah, but like if your gunyon angle is off a little bit on one side, no one cares.
Well,
but aside from
like
that, that's not the main
IPD,
point of my question.
Like how far apart your eyes are. That's another big one.
I mean, yeah, that plays into it as well.
Chin to philtrum ratio.
Okay. We don't have to go through them all. We don't have to go through them all. The main point of my question is just saying, do you think that a guy's aesthetic plays into how he looks beyond genetics? So, for example, if a guy's blonde, let's say he's, average height, right? And he's in an area like South Beach where a lot of people are surfing, like doing a lot of stuff on the water, and he plays into the surfer boy aesthetic. Do you think that plays into his attractiveness at all in that area?
It might be like in some small niche communities where girls.
I'm just seeing like, how do you think that plays in for looks and angry? Like if a guy fits like a surfer boy aesthetic or like, I don't know, like crystal guys, like Erudites mentioned before. Do you think that aesthetic plays into how girls perceive him and are attracted to him?
Yeah, I think so, because I think a lot of women, they have this picture in their mind of the man they're going to end up falling for. And yeah, this niche aesthetic might appeal to that picture based on, how she was raised or based on, what her father looked like. However, you have to reach that threshold first, which obviously looks and height are the most potent, right?
Okay, yeah. But do you think if a guy is missing the looks and height a little bit, he could be able to, get some ground back by matching an aesthetic that girls are prone to liking?
I don't
This
really
changes culturally.
Honestly, I think you need to meet the basic requirements first before you niche out.
I agree.
But I do think it has utility for sure. Like, I mean, if you're like really ugly, maybe gym maxing, you can get another like super gym maxing, right? You can get a girl who's also into fitness. I mean, I've seen it happen. Like it's a lot of jacked guys, not a lot of jacked guys are incels, even if they're ugly. So, gym maxing a ton.
But I think this happens in like college a lot. Like a lot of guys who, spec a little bit further into the aesthetic game of things, pull way harder and they do way better,
it can help,
regardless of looks and genetics.
What do you mean by aesthetic? Just having that like?
I just mean having a cohesive like physical presence and image, right? So if I have a digital footprint and I present myself as a professional, I present myself as a musician, I present myself as a carpenter, there's aesthetics that go with those professions. And in the same way that an aesthetic can match a profession, it can match a person. So like your personal style, right? Your facial hair, all that plays into it, right? And I think that you really underrate the power that a personal aesthetic has in attracting women.
Yeah.
Niles, I also think you're a pretty good case subject because when you first started doing the speed dating, you were not doing that well. You were doing like slightly below average versus in the last one, the competition, you did significantly above average. You took home the prize, so as to speak. So I think you're actually a good example of someone who was able to level up their social skills.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I would be in a position where I would want to deny that because you were on the opposite team. So I would be the last person to like admit that if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So Alex, I actually had a question for you. I know that you said that there is some kind of association between looks and your social game. I wanted to ask you what you think would be objectively more important. Do you think it's more black pill or is it more red pill? If you had to put like a percentage between those two, what
are the percentages for black pill and red pill? You have to give me like a little more info.
Meaning, like, do you think that the requirement to garner a level of attraction would be more associated with, black pill? So whereas someone's a 10, but they're not very social in any kind of way, or someone who has perfect game, but they're probably like a 3 in looks?
What do the red pillars believe? They believe it's like a 50-50 type of thing, or?
I would say that red pillars, they would say maybe that you would kind of have to, you can work up yourself, and it's more based around game. But then black pillars would say that it's more based around looks, just like looks 4L. You would say that it's primarily associated with looks.
I would probably be leaning closer to red pill on that. I mean, I think definitely. Okay, let's take two guys. One of them is a 9, one of them is a 3. They both have dog shit game. I will fully concede that the guy who's a 3 is probably going to get on average worse reactions, and girls are going to give him less of the benefit of the doubt. But you know, I still think it's not like, I don't think it's like super duper substantial. I think that if you have dog shit game, you're going to struggle to get results. If you are really, really good looking, you might have a few girls who are just like really find your steady or attractive who will fuck you. We call them like the hard yes girls. But the majority of girls aren't yes girls. They're maybe girls. They're like, they're interested, but they're not sure yet. And those girls, you know, you're not going to be able to close if you have dog shit game. In terms of, again, which one is more important, I feel like that's kind of like asking, is an engine or transmission more important to a car? I think they're both important. I think you should level up your looks as much as possible. The issue is that you can level up your looks by maybe 2 points, right? But you can't level up your looks by 7 points typically. So I think that you should focus on what you can control, level up your looks as much as possible, and then focus on your social skills in your game.
I think that's a good answer. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for Kyla, but I don't know if my mic is fine.
I think my mic's coming through now. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks.
So yeah, hey Kyla, I was watching your debate with Authentic Alphas, the red pill guy.
Is that Allende?
Yeah, Allende.
Okay.
Yeah, at one point you said that pop culture tells young men that casual sex will make them happy, but most of the time that's not the case. I kind of wonder if the actual reason is not because casual sex is not making them happy, rather it's that they are not getting casual sex as much as they want, so that's why they're not happy.
Based.
So you're trying to argue that the reason that they're unhappy is because they're just not getting enough casual sex?
Yeah, it's like society tells them casual sex will make them happy, but they themselves, they are not getting laid that much.
But isn't the problem that society's telling them that it's casual sex? So isn't the problem that they have this perceived disparity of sex? Not that the sex itself is inherent. It's actually just society who's created the structure of happiness, which doesn't need to exist.
I do agree that society has a role to play, but I think inherently as human beings we all want to fuck a lot. So if these guys just got laid way more, if they had better social skills, better looks, or better whatever, I don't know whatever's preventing them.
Well, yeah, but as humans evolutionarily, I also want to eat a lot of sugar. I also want to drink as much alcohol as possible. There's lots of things that set off that tickle my dopamine sensors. The issue is that just because it tickles my dopamine sensors doesn't mean that it leads to long-term consistent happiness. And I would argue that casual sex never seems to actually do anything, but it's about as good as like eating a tasty chocolate bar. I mean, it's a little bit better. I guess depending on the sex, but
I mean, well, you can have casual sex while you eat a chocolate bar. Oh,
if food kinks are your thing, then you know you can double up on the dopamine, I guess.
Are you sure it's a chocolate bar, Alex, and not something else?
Well, what would it be? I don't get the reference.
I don't think we want to go that direction.
Come on, Alex.
I have a theory actually. I'm curious what Alex thinks about it, and anybody else could jump in too.
Could I just respond to Kyla's point before we change?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I just want to say, so in the example of the chocolate bar, in this case, it's like there's a guy who really likes chocolate bars, but he's not getting any chocolate bars. And you're telling the guy that, hey, instead of trying to eat a chocolate bar, just try something else. And yeah, my point is just that, or if maybe that guy just had, say, one chocolate bar a month, or maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, he might be happy either way.
Maybe, but if he ties his happiness to just eating chocolate bars, he's going to have a miserable fucking life. So what happens if all the chocolate gets deleted, you know? I don't know, Sweden or wherever Switzerland gets bombed and now there's no chocolate on the whole planet. Well, now the guy's fucked because we convinced them that he needed one chocolate bar a month. Why doesn't he try fruit?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying it's like just one thing as much as like, I feel like you demonize casual sex sometimes. Or I might just be wrong about it.
No, I don't have a problem with casual sex. I'm just tired of romanticizing casual sex and pretending like it solves anyone's problems. It's fun. It's nice to have, just like chocolate's nice to have. The problem is that that's kind of the end of it for me.
You tell a guy who's like never gotten laid, like, bro, like it's not even that great. Like casual sex is whatever. It's like telling a kid who's starving, like, oh, food's not that good. It's like whatever, bro. Like pizza's just okay.
You're literally faking your deep voice. I don't give a fuck what you have to say at this point anymore.
I'm just like always faking. This is just me faking.
I would sort of agree with Looks for L's moment. I do remember back when I was like a fucking virgin, like. Yeah, like
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
This is because like society has hedged to men this attachment of sexuality. This is why, for example, there's like this high entitlement to sexuality as well within men, which is this idea that like really truly, if a man isn't having sex, there's a little wiggling part of your brain that is saying you're not even good enough. You're not even a man enough to have sex, right? Your value is intrinsically tied to this. The problem is that it doesn't necessarily have to be. There are biological reasons to some extent why it is. I understand that. The issue is that society is capable of alleviating some of these biological pressures and helping you find meaning beyond casual sex. If you want to have casual sex just for funsies, that's fine. I just don't want to romanticize it.
I'm just going to quickly feed my dog while you guys keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also had a question on this point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, building off the casual sex thread, I think that some of the biggest societal degradation problems that Blackpillers point out are rooted in casual sex. Like, the entire reason why hookup culture exists is because a man can't engage with a woman sexually outside of marriage, right? Before, when a man could only engage with a woman sexually inside of the context of a marriage, the idea of something like a fuckboy would be a socially aberrant character, right? That would be a person that would be hated universally culturally. And the reason why that's available now is because of, you know, the way society has changed. So do you think that casual sex is actually the root of like the issues the Black Pill calls out?
Probably not alone. If you're asking me, I guess I'm being main character syndrome by assuming you're talking to me. But Angry, I'm sorry, before I jump in, Angry, did you have something you wanted to say with that?
Yeah, I was going to say it's not, I don't think it's because of a decline in conservative values necessarily. It's more to do with the fact that we're very socially atomized, living, I'm assuming the majority of us are living in post-industrialist societies, where men and women are not encouraged to share furniture, right? Because, you know, you're not feeding the economic machine, so to speak. And again, a lot of leftists will recognize, you know, economic inequality, but then once we talk about dating, and they just don't see the parallels between the dating economy and the financial economy. It's ridiculous to me. Fuck, what else was I going to say? That's about it.
Part of why these are really hard to like draw a parallel between is because like you need money literally, like unironically for a lot of, especially Americans, your body is less valuable to you than your money is. This is why people work labor jobs that destroy their body, because it's better to destroy their body long term than to risk being broke and starving for the rest of your life. So like sex isn't the same thing. It's important for some elements of like the evolutionary pressure to like have progeny, but it's not quite the like daily pressing need of like, I need money to survive.
I would argue, Erdad, actually, I'm going to take the Black Pill side. I would argue when you're a guy who is either a virgin or just not having sex, that it is like pressing on you. I remember when I was like, again, like when I was 18, 19, it was like this monkey that was on my back where I was like, fuck. I can't get laid. It's like, it's this drive that just like prevents you from focusing on anything else. Like, it's just like a cloud that's hanging over your head. I don't know. It's really weird to explain, but maybe the guys on the panel can like say, you know, they understand what I mean. But yeah,
when you're a virgin as a man, it's like all you ever think about.
Yeah. It's like you literally can't focus
every day.
You can't.
But the difference between being a virgin and not having enough income is that not having enough income could literally cause you to lose your family, children, and have to be on the streets and poor. Being a virgin just means that society has decided that you're not as valuable. And just to be clear, these are both really high stakes. The argument that I would make would be the tying that we attach to men's value and their sexuality is probably a little bit toxic. We could probably step it off a little bit so that like male virgins aren't viewed as this like disgusting pariah on society.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's all like social shame though, because I just think most men who are virgins, they're a lot of them are probably not thinking, oh, I'm a loser or whatever. I mean, you know, some are, but I think a lot of them are just like, fuck, dude, like women are hot. Like, I wonder what sex is like. Like, I want to get laid, you know?
Sure, but I feel that way about lots of drugs too. Like meth kind of sounds like a fun time, but like the whole, some of the processes of meth, it doesn't seem worth it. Like I understand wanting to get your nut and wanting to just like fuck, and you're horny and you're teen, your dick's itching to just like put in something. The issue is that your value doesn't need to be tied to this. Just like a woman's value is probably disproportionately tied to how attractive she is, I think men's value are tied to how much they contribute to GDP and whether or not they're sexless or not. And I think that that's a bad thing.
But like whether you like to admit it or not, being a sexually active male just opens up so many avenues and opportunities. So if you're not a participant in the sexual marketplace, you're going to be at a disadvantage economically and socially.
Well, probably not economically. I imagine like sexless virgins, as long as they don't tell anyone. The only issue they're going to run into is like, imagine if Steve Jobs was like 60, and he just kept telling people, he's like, I'm a fucking virgin. Like, okay, that would probably have a problem.
Right? In his thesis or whatever, their incels are more likely to be neats.
Okay, but this is a correlational thing. This doesn't mean that because you're not having sex,
no, I don't think it's correlational at all.
It's
no,
absolutely
men with an
correlational.
inability to get laid on college campuses are more likely to drop out. I mean, why do men drop out at a higher rate than women? Why is it? Why
because
do
disenfranchised men are going to be less successful across the board in every metric. This doesn't mean that because they're not having sex that they're not getting jobs or going. There's no way you could convince me that the moment that their dick gets wet that their grades are going to increase. There's no fucking shot. The reality
is a very strong predictor of
absolutely, but the metrics that are required by improving yourself, by having some level of self-confidence, by having consciousness. Okay, but you're acting like the panacea for the NEET's problem.
It is a panacea, though.
It's not. It's not. Because the reason that you're sexless is because you're a weird, awkward fuck that girls don't want to sleep with. That's why you're getting no jobs. That's why you're getting kicked out of schools. It's not a cope. This is the reality. I have a ton of empathy for incels. They've been fucked over by society. They've had no fathers. They've had no good role models. And nobody gives a fuck about them, right? They are failing in every way, but the reality is incels are also extremely unpleasant human beings to be around. They're often very negative. They're very rude. They have no social skills. They often don't have good hygiene skills, right? And so like, they're like, oh, if I just had sex, it would fix all the problems. Well, sex isn't going to make you shower. Sex isn't going to make you get good grades. It's not going to teach you how to study. It's not going to teach you how to write a professional email.
No, but sex is being used as a proxy for all these other social behaviors that are linked intrinsically with good outcomes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Boom.
That's the problem.
No, he's agreeing with me.
Using sex is a bad heuristic. Sex is a heuristic we use to judge someone's social standing, but it's a bad heuristic because it's not linked intrinsically with the other success factors that make someone have a good life.
Just so it's clear, Niles was agreeing with me when you guys said boom. He was disagreeing with both of you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would say it's probably I would probably say my opinion is somewhere in the middle. I can totally foresee how, like, if you haven't been able to have sex, how that's preventing you from focusing, and you can't study, you can't really focus on the test. It's just like this cloud that's weighing over your head. At least that's what it was like for me. So I could sort of see how, like, not having sex is gonna, like, negatively affect other areas.
Most guys who can't have sex probably fall into porn addiction. What do you say?
We don't know necessarily.
Even if you have sex, you
I don't know.
Like, there's many sex havers who also
how
have
could
porn
they
addictions.
study or do all this other shit if they're watching porn all the time?
But we'd have to see whether or not like behaviors that they're exhibiting that are maladaptive are because of not having sex or were already present before then.
Yes, I think this is very important.
It's definitely true that probably things that they were like because they weren't having sex, therefore they started turning to copes or anything else to sort of be a substitute for that, and it just further caused them to backslide. Like it would be something we'd have to like do by case basis or do some larger study to like find and see what like the root cause of it is.
Right. Well, the question, we've done these studies. What's going to predict somebody's future life success? Their sex habits or whether they have two parent figures in the household? What do you guess? Because there's data on this. Two parents in the household. Guess what? Sex having doesn't top up on any of these charts of predicting later on life success. So like we do have some directionality that we can postulate about, right? The idea that like having sex will like solve a lot of their issues, it'll probably fix a lot of their confidence issues, which will improve certain elements of their life. But the idea that like sex is the panacea and the cause of their problems is just not really true. It's way more complex than that.
Yeah,
because then pay for box. If literally sex is the difference between you having a job and having a successful life, pay for box. Literally, that's it.
I agree.
Yeah, that's like go off on
it
that.
doesn't, Kyla, it doesn't like satisfy that same.
It's not. It's also not that.
You need to be like validated by a woman.
I agree though because I know I'll probably get blowback. Maybe me and Alex have a little debate. But if there's a guy that let's say he's like 18 years old, he's an awkward incel. I would tell him learn game. You need to learn game because a prostitute is never going to compare to a real woman, and you're not going to get like it. That's obvious. Learn game. But let's say he's such an awkward incel, it's going to take him a couple years. Why put yourself through that for a couple years? Yes, learn game, but right now, go pay for some box so you can at least have sex, to at least get that fucking monkey off your back, to at least know that you've been inside a woman, that you've done it. It's not the same, but it's a hell of a lot better than nothing.
I mean, I don't have a problem with people doing that. I think as long as I think the only potential issue I see is that it can kill your drive to learn game, because you're like, oh, well, I can get like, 70% of the same benefits. So why
Kill
would
your
I
drive
learn
to pay the dating
But-
coaches. It's not a shot at you.
Well, here's the thing. You can attach so one solution to having your confidence destroyed by not having sex is to have sex to improve that situation. Another solution as an individual is that you can detach your self-value from whether or not you have sex. Both of these are viable solutions, and yet everyone acts like the second one. It's not even on the table in most of these conversations. Why the fuck not?
What's the second one?
Yeah.
The second one is detaching your self-value from whether or not you're having sex.
So
Well,
it's nothing,
I think that's a good
self-value, though.
idea.
It's
I think
having a
ironically doing that will actually help you get more sex if you don't give a shit whether
Probably.
you get laid or not. But I think
Literally.
it more has to do with it's not the actual act of like having sex that like makes you a better person. It more has to do with the process that you go through to meet girls and pick up girls. It forces you to become more confident. It forces you to go outside your comfort zone. It forces you to overcome your anxiety. It forces you to put yourself out there. It forces you to do all these things that at the end of the day will make you a better person.
What do you think will make you a better husband? Somebody who finally gets over their self-confidence issues by having sex, or somebody who's done enough self-work to detach their self-value from sex having? Who's going to be the better partner?
Well, I think pickup is a form of self-work. It's one of the ways to get there. There's other ways. I don't know which way is better, but for me, I took the pickup path and it worked pretty well.
Sure, and it's self-work in certain facets, but it's not the same self-work required to basically have some intrinsic sense of self-value and locus of control and like essentially modality of self-love. Like the reality is like it's the latter. If you're like people like easier said than done, it's really hard to detach your self-value from sex. I fully empathize with that. Just like as a woman, it's incredibly difficult to detach your self-value from how attractive you are. But it's important work to do. Even if you're sex having, you should still do it.
What
So
arbitrary
I agree.
characteristics should determine your self-worth?
Sorry,
If not
I
sex.
misheard you.
I said what arbitrary characteristics should determine your self-worth if not sex having capability?
Sure. Yeah. So certain things that determine my self-worth, for example, is the fact that I have a really strong sense of core ethics and I fucking stick to them. I'm actually really, really consistent and I live out the ethics that I profess. And I'm really, really proud of myself for that. I also think that I'm decently funny and I'm a really, really good friend, like a very good friend if I like include you in my inner circle. And I'm really, really proud of that. I'm also really smart and I'm really proud of the fact that I'm smart and that I can do academics well and disseminate information. So those are certain things that I'm trying to attach my self-worth to that have more meaning.
So wouldn't you postulate that like being a good friend and being smart and funny will grant you more sexual opportunities?
Probably, but if you're doing it for the goal of more sexual opportunities, I think you're missing the point.
No, what I'm saying is that the measurements that you suggest we should, or we men, whatever, incels, should use to determine their self-worth will lead to more sexual opportunities anyway. So it's kind of ironic in that sense.
It's actually based. It's like you basically have a better life and you have more sex now and you don't have to pay for box.
But I'm saying then why do we need the shortcut then? Why can't we you see what I mean?
That my answer is not a shortcut. My answer is long. It is not a shortcut. Self-work like this is not a shortcut. This is the fucking shit that addicts do, and it is life or death for them. This is not easy work. This is confronting your demons. This is stopping the copage. This is fucking hard, and it'll take you years. The idea to think that detaching your self-value from sex is the easy pathway is insane. Having sex is the easy pathway, and that's why we sell it to young men, because it's easier to tell them to go get box than to tell them to go work on yourself and like basically battle your inner demons. That's hard.
I just don't see why men can't do both. Like, why can't you?
This is another general.
They can do both. They can do both. The issue is we tell men sex.
But
the
also,
majority of male energy expenditure is like aimed at sex anyway, right? Like, why are men the most creative and potentially dangerous when they're young? It's because they want to gain more sexual opportunities.
No, it's because they're high impulse and their prefrontal lobes aren't very well developed, and their cingulate gyrus is basically like flailing in the background. It doesn't really exist until they're like 25.
I would have a slightly different.
Yeah, but how does that influence creativity? Like,
because if you have less impulse control, you're more creative. This is why Tourette's and other like impulse control problems
positively impact creativity.
Yes, literally. Yes, literally. Tourette's is highly predictive of creativity because they have impulse control problems from their basal ganglia. This is actually known.
Wait,
I don't know. To me, it seems that the majority of musicians and people that you extol as being very attractive to women peak at a very young age, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
Wait, let me just make a point real quick.
And the reason why is because they're motivated to gain more sexual opportunities. Therefore, again, yeah. What's your thing? I'm sorry, Alex. I really.
No, you're good. You're good. By the way, I can tell you're Canadian because you said sorry. Okay, so
try not to dock yourself.
So what I was gonna say is what I've kind of come to is where I get my self-esteem from, and where I advocate for people to get their self-esteem from is not the results, but your actions. So if I don't get laid, that's okay because I did what I wanted to do and went up and approached that girl. If my business idea failed, and I've had business ideas that failed, many more failures than successes, right? But that's okay because I put in the work. So for me, it's not about, I feel good about myself if I just take the right action and I don't really focus on the result. It's just about taking the action. So I think that's a healthier, like whatever thing to derive your sense of feeling good from is taking right action rather than the outcome.
I have a question.
I want to share something real quick. I actually came up with a mental model for this one time. So I think there's 3 levels to this. And I think the lowest level is like guy who can't even get laid. And he copes by saying, oh, well, I'm not a sex addict and sex isn't the most important thing in life and blah, blah, blah. A level above that is guy who can get laid, but he actually is a sex addict and it runs his life and is not healthy and his self-esteem depends on it, etc.
I wonder who you could be talking about.
No, I'm not talking about anyone in particular, brother. Okay, but level above that is guy who has the ability to get laid. He could be a sex addict if he wanted to, but he has sex in moderation because he doesn't really need it and his self-esteem doesn't really depend on it, and he has other interests.
I would agree with you on that.
That's like the
lowest level. Definitely the lowest level is the guy who can't even get laid and has all kinds of like. I mean, they both suck, honestly. I mean, if you can't get laid or you're a sex addict, I mean, it's like pick your hell. I mean,
that's typically the phase. Like all like the dating coaches, with the exception of one who I've talked to about this, like who are pretty successful, or like just friends I have who are like pretty good with girls. It all goes through stage 1, you suck with girls, it fucking consumes you. Stage 2, you become good with girls, and then you're like addicted to getting laid. It's just like it consumes you. In stage 3, you realize that you're spending too much time on this. You've already proven a point to yourself or to whoever, and you don't really care anymore, and you're just having sex for the fun of having sex and not for the validation. Those are like the 3 stages that
I will say this though. A lot of people say for men who start getting laid later on in life, they say, oh, there's no need to make up for lost time. You know, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. If a man doesn't want to, then that's fine. But I think it's actually good to make up for lost time because what you're talking about there, Alex, like once you get all the sexual experience under your belt, like once you've gotten laid a lot, then you can kind of move on from it. But until then, it's like, you know, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it's kind of funny to observe this because me and Indian PE, like he's in that like make up for lost time, you know, phase because he lost his virginity when he was 26. Versus for me, I'm like in that like stage 3 where I'm just like, yeah, you know, if I'm horny that day and that girl's really attractive, sure, but it's like not important to me.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting to see that. I do want to wrap up, guys, because we're going on 3.5 hours. Any closing thoughts, anybody?
I know the Chatter Peacecraft is desperate to come in for like 2 minutes. I didn't send the link to my chat.
Let him in. Yeah, let him in
for 2 minutes. That's my bad.
Okay. Anyone else have any closing thoughts?
Also, for whatever he says, it's not my fault. I am not responsible for him.
No, you're good.
I just had a closing question. Alex, I wanted to ask you, I know your business revolves around like getting girls and, dating in the dating game. But let's say you were still doing sales or some other business venture. If you were asexual, how much more like money would you be making right now? If at all.
Well, I think at this point in time, sex does not hurt my business in any way because I have a girlfriend. I don't really focus on like one night stands and shit. So, but I think for a long period of time, it did. I would pass up business opportunities to get laid. But that's not what concerns me more. What I find most sad about like myself 4 or 5 years ago is I would be at like a family reunion and I would be on my phone on Tinder. And then I remember like my family would be like, Alex, are you here? I'd be like, yeah, I'm here. And then like I would just be counting down the minutes until everyone goes to sleep so I can go out and fuck some random Tinder girl. And like I was there, but I wasn't fully present. And that's like something I've very actively in the last 2 years like try to combat, where I can actually like enjoy the moment and not like chasing pussy to that extent. So I think at this point it doesn't affect my business negatively at all, but I think it used to. I think more importantly, it negatively affected the kind of bonding I was able to have with my family and friends, which I find even more sad.
Cool.
Yeah, I just had like a final thing to say. So I feel like when it comes to casual sex, we tend to forget that if a guy does not have enough casual sex, or even for a girl, but like for anybody, if you haven't had enough, you don't truly know what you look for in a partner, because the only reference you'll have is like on TV or just from the media. So the only way you truly know what kind of person you're attracted to, whether looks or personality, is by having a bunch of casual sex for a bit.
Yeah. Wait, Kyla, is the person backstage or Eastcraft? No, I don't see them. I see someone called the Bikini Slayer. Yo, sorry, bro. We can't get you on today, but definitely next time. Yeah. Does anyone else have any closing thoughts while we wait for
I had a
Kyla's?
question for Kyla. I wanted
Okay.
to ask you, a guy that's much shorter than you who has great game, or someone that you're more physically attracted to with average game, what would you choose? If you have to pick one.
Sorry, I got slightly distracted by something. Can
No
you say
problem.
the two hypotheticals again?
So, hypothetically speaking, if there was a guy that was much shorter than you, say, if you're 5'5", let's say he's 5'3", great game, versus someone that you're really physically attracted to and the game's average, who would you choose?
Is this for dating or for a fuck?
This would be for dating, the person that you're going to be with forever.
This is really hard to answer because I wouldn't select on either of these metrics for long-term dating. For fucking, I'll answer for fucking, just so I'm engaging with the hypothetical. It would be the taller, more average game guy, for sure, for a fuck. For a long-term relationship, honestly, if the short guy has incredible game, I'd definitely be a little bit more open to a long-term with him.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Alex, I want to ask you about this theory that I have.
Okay.
I want your thoughts. So I think that as men, we like sex, obviously, because it feels good on like a physical sensation level.
Uh-huh.
But I think even a deeper reason than that is when you're having sex with a woman and she's like super into you, she'll do whatever you want, whenever you want. That's when you feel the most respected as a man and the most like feminine touch, like affection. So I think for men, respect is like a deeper drive than even the physical sensation.
I think it depends on the men, but yeah, I think potentially, sure, yeah.
I think you're talking about like being validated by a woman, like she truly desires you, right? Is that what you mean?
But I think as a man, you shouldn't be like obsessed with the respect. I think this is a little bit of a, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This is a little bit of a rabbit hole I see some guys going down where they're like, they need respect from other people. And if they don't get it, it like actually affects their like, I don't know, their emotional well-being in that moment. But I don't really give a shit whether random people respect me or not. It just doesn't matter to me. So I think
Okay,
that's like.
but wouldn't you agree though? Every man wants to feel respected by at least one woman, if not more.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think respect is synonymous with attraction. If a girl loses respect for you, she's not going to be attracted to you. Once respect goes out the window, then attraction is going to go out the window really fast too. So you can't have one without the other. You can have attraction maybe without respect, but you can have. No, sorry, I'm saying you cannot have attraction without respect. You can have respect without attraction for sure, but you cannot have attraction without respect.
Alex, to comment on that, I think feeling validated by a woman and the desire she has for you is what matters to the guy. Like paying for play is not going to have that same reaction because she truly didn't desire you. And that's what guys are trying to search for, like a woman who truly desires them.
Then hopefully they don't just desire you for your looks.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if I could trick a woman to desiring me for my looks, that would still be pretty fucking great. So,
look at that. That's how much they like.
Why don't you just trick her with money?
Because it's part of the whole game. That's the fun part.
Well, you're just tricking her with more money because you have to spend so much money on it.
True.
It would have been cheaper if you just paid for box at this point.
Kyla, is your guy like coming on or?
It's all about the hunt.
No, I think he's like, meh. I don't think he's going on anymore.
All right, cool. Let's wrap up then because we're coming on 4 hours. I also have to shoot a video later tonight. Yeah, appreciate you all for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I think it was a good, healthy discussion. Thank you, Kyla. Always enjoy our little debates. Yeah, by the way, Destiny's coming on Thursday to do speed date.
Okay, nice.
To do a speed date with Torsha. So that should be really interesting. But yeah, cool. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. So what's the agenda? Today is, my brain is like fried. Today is Monday, right? No, today is Tuesday. So Wednesday, tomorrow, we got a very interesting show. It's going to be a variation of speed dating. It's going to be called Black Pill, Black Roulette, but we're not going to call it Black Pill. We got some big timers. We got the single guy. We got Prince O. We got Duke and Don. So it's going to be dope. And then Thursday, it's going to be the Destiny thing. And then I'm having Gabriel Gray on. We're going to review Infield. Friday, we're going to do a couple stream, me and Andy from Kill Your Inner Loser and my girlfriend and his girlfriend. So that should be fun. So yeah, a lot of really good stuff. I'm going to drop some more Infield without the dog very soon. I'm just waiting on those video files to come in. So a lot of good shit. Make sure you check out Kyla's channel. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Appreciate y'all. Until next time.
Take care.